Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. It is 10:05 a.m. We're in the city chambers, and I call the commission regular meeting to order. Those present today are Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, myself, Mayor Hanks, Commissioner Carasone, and Commissioner Emmerich. We also have City Manager Lear, City Attorney Slayton, City Clerk Pito. We have Recording Secretary Susan Hale. Chief, I don't see the chief. I see the Deputy Chief is back there, and I see Chief Titus back there. Yep. So we're going to get started. We have an invocation from St. Nathaniel Episcopal Church. If you would, Pastor. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Let us pray. Gracious God, we just gather here today knowing and receiving all the blessings that you have to bestow upon us. We ask you to be with the mayor, the vice mayor, all the appointed and elected officials as they deliberate what is best for Northport. We ask you to be with all the police staff and the fire department, and we ask you to protect them from all hurt, harm, and danger. And Lord, knowing that you are in our midst, we ask you to just be with us in a favorable outcome of this meeting, knowing that all that is done and all that will be done is for the best of the citizens of this city. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Hayden. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I may get an approval of the agenda, please.
So moved, Mayor. Second.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Let's take the vote, please. That is approved unanimously. Move on to announcements. City Clerk.
Thank you. We have the current vacancies on the following boards and committees: the Art Advisory Board, the Audit Committee, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, Environmental Advisory Board, Historic and Cultural Advisory Board, Joint Management Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Public Utilities Advisory Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have the upcoming expirations on the following boards and committees: the Art Advisory Board, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizens Tax Oversight Committee, Police Pension Board of Trustees, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. There is a position for a Northport resident to serve on the Sarasota Manatee Metropolitan Organization's Tamiami Trail Scenic Highway Committee. And if anybody has any interest in serving or applying on one of those, to please see us at the City Clerk's Department. And I also just wanted to make a quick announcement to the commission that the school board does have their meeting tonight in the chamber. So if this meeting is not over by 5, we're going to need to wrap up so that they can come in and get set up for their 6:30 meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. I have 2 public comments here. I'm going to ask if you would like to do them now, just because we have a presentation that I think is going to take a little bit. But I have a Mark Musty and a Norbert Schneider that want to speak on the consent items. Would you like to go ahead and speak now, because it might be a little bit before we actually get to it? Yes? So I call up Mr. Musty and Mr. Schneider for the public comments. Or Schneider first is fine. No particular order.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Norbert Schneider. I've lived in Northport for about 19 years. I've served on the Planning and Zoning Board for 8 years. They want to get rid of me. They want to turn me out. So I want to get on, I think it's the Utility Board. Is that correct? And maybe I can serve on that for a while and get back on the P&Z. I kind of like that one. And if you've got any questions to ask me, I'll try and answer them for you.
Commission, do you have anything for him? Go ahead.
Thank you for your service on planning and zoning. Not sure how the vote's going to go, but thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
I appreciate all you do. Thank
Yep.
you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioner Haynes and Mayor Haynes and Vice Mayor McDowell, commissioners in the city of Northport. I just want to introduce myself. My name's Mark Moosty. I've lived in Northport for 5 years and love this city and have submitted an application to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals Committee. I just felt like it was time that I became a contributing citizen to my wonderful city, and just wanted to thank you for the opportunity for considering my application here today. And if you have any questions, if they're not very difficult, I'll try to answer.
Commission, do we have anything for Mr. Musty? We don't have anything at this time? Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say
Yes.
thank you for being here today and introducing yourself, and I appreciate your willingness to want to serve. Thank you.
I'm glad to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Uh-huh. Do you have any other public comment?
Yes, Mayor, I actually submitted a card
Mm-hmm.
as well, yes.
Okay, hang on one
Yeah,
second.
1 second.
I'm sorry, Miss Alicia, I apologize. I marked it as 4A for the next item. I apologize. That was my error.
Oh, no worries, thank you so much.
Miss Alicia, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Good morning, City Commissioner, all protocols in here observed, City Manager. My name is Alicia Marie Finn. I am a local business attorney, commercial litigator. Full disclosure, I'm also on the advisory board for public utilities here in the city of Northport. I'm also on the Business Economic Development Committee for the Chamber. Head of the Chamber is here. Welcome. And so my comments, I chose to do it here in the public comments prior to the presentation that is coming up under 4. And that is because I truly wanted to present my comments from an objective perspective as opposed to listening to the presentation and then making a comment. So 120 seconds is what I asked for. That's very hard for me to do, but please indulge me. Very difficult. So here's where I'm at. I am for anyone, any organization that is about economic development for the city of Northport. But do not misunderstand me. I am strictly for the city of Northport and its improvement. And with that being said, I was fortunate to be privy to prior presentation about this new organization and what they would like to do. I'm very friendly with some of the members that are in there, as well as I'm friendly with the Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota. So here's what I'm presenting to the commission and all protocols today. As you go forward and listen to this presentation, I'm asking you to balance economics and the environment. So what do I mean by that? Land development is not economic development. It is merely a facet of economic development. And we need to make sure that parties are not confusing those concepts. The second thing that I'm asking the City Commission to do today is to realize that we gave $60,000 to $70,000 to the EDC of Sarasota. And while I love them and I give out their goodies at my events, at my table, I'm very vocal about the fact that we need to hold them to task, the EDC of Sarasota, to whatever contract that that's already in place with them. So why am I mentioning that? As you go forward and you listen, I want to make sure that any new organization that comes forward that talk about economic development is not duplicating what we have already tasked the EDC with. With that being said, if they're bringing new ideas and they can present anything that will uplift economically the city of Northport, I am for that. But here's what I'm asking you to do. You have 70,000 reasons to be on the EDC of Sarasota to do what they're tasked with. You should not add $30,000 to that task if it is duplicative. So therefore, I'm asking, regardless of what you listen to, what you do, how you do it, what I'm asking is that if anything that any new economic development organization is going to do for the city of Northport, make sure those duties are not duplicative. And if they have new ideas that can, in fact, bring empowerment to the city, then you break that up. You have a city manager, I know her, make sure that the contract is broken up in different terms, but 30,000, 70,000, where we are today, balance the environment and the economics.
Thank you so much.
Need that bell a little louder so that citizens can hear it.
Okay, do I have any other public comment?
No, I went through again to double check, and I have them all for 4A.
Okay, we're going to move on to our presentations. We have a presentation regarding Northport Partnership for Creative Economies.
I don't know what she's...
Okay, did you want it during general? Typically, when we have them on a topic, it's just before we take the motion.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
it for the
yeah, just so
topic.
everybody knows, if you have a specific topic, we will pick up that public comment just before we take the motion. Unless you want to do it during general, which we're more than welcome to. All right, so we're going to move on to our presentation. This presentation was brought to me by the Partnership for Creative Economies, and therefore we have Ms. Barbara Langdon here, it looks like, City Manager. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, sir, not at this time. We'll just let them do their presentation.
Sounds good, thank you.
Great.
Ms. Langdon.
Thank you. I want to thank the Commission and the City for the opportunity to come here today and talk with you about supporting the Partnership for Creative Economies. Rich Sugg sends his regrets, although he's with us here today. He broke away for a few minutes from his taxes. As you know, he's a CPA and up to his eyebrows in taxes, and had to focus on his business rather than preparing for this meeting. So he asked me to stand in for him. I know many of you don't know me, so I'd like to take a moment to simply introduce myself. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, a fact that will become painfully clear the longer I speak. I earned an undergraduate degree in psychology from Northeastern University, a master's in city planning from Boston University, and a master's in business from Simmons. I spent 17 years developing and launching major marketing initiatives for Fortune 100 technology companies before starting my own consulting company. But I am no stranger to this area. My dad built a home in Port Charlotte in the early 1980s after retiring from the Boston Fire Department. But I first fell in love with Northport about 15 years ago when my husband and I took the Sumter Boulevard exit off of I-75 in desperate search for Dunkin' Donuts. And anyone who knows us New Englanders, we have to have our Dunkies. So we took that exit, we'd never been to Northport, and we were so impressed by the beauty, the greenery and the trees, and we instantly fell in love. And I remember turning to my husband and saying, Tom, this Northport is a gorgeous place, but I don't think we could ever afford to live here. Because even back then, we were planning our escape from the snow country to live down here. But since moving to Northport, I relaunched my company, Market Momentum, and I'm here to help small businesses grow by using email and social media effectively. And it was in that role that I met Peter Bartolotta, and he did what he does best. He roped me into activities to support our fair city and invited me to sit on the board of the Northport EDC, which I did. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me as much as I would love to continue. We're here today to accomplish two very important goals. First, to agree to work together for the benefit of Northport and its citizens. In your backup materials, these slides state we're here to develop that working relationship, But that really won't happen until we sit down and meet with city staff and create that plan about how we will move forward. The second objective is to confirm city participation in that effort by securing funding for the PCE. Now, I'm here representing an outstanding board of volunteers. This board is an interim board, and they're a team of very committed volunteers of varied backgrounds who are ready to work with the city to develop that working relationship and then help us recruit the type of board of directors that will help us best execute that plan. As an update to this slide, Dion Ramos will not be part of that planning committee. He's in Tallahassee for the next few months with James Buchanan while legislature is in session. And it should be noted that due to the costs of forming a corporation, one of the commissioners suggested that we hold off on taking that first step until we have the commitment of the city, since that commitment is really critical to our moving forward today. Even more importantly, I'm here representing a group of folks, my fellow green shirts, who are here to support this proposal, and I want to thank you for coming. I anticipate that there are some folks here that perhaps disagree with this proposal, but I want to thank you for coming too. Our country is built on the free exchange of ideas, and that becomes even more important when we come to different conclusions. So, over the past 15 years, many, many good people have worked very hard to make Northport a great place to live, work, and play. And yet, at a recent meeting hosted by the city of Northport, representatives of Site Selector magazine shared some impressions their readership expressed in a survey. You can read these, I'm not going to go through them. But clearly, from these comments, they're not aware of the many, many assets that we have here in Northport. Let's change that. As we've already shown, we've tried many different things over the years to create a better Northport. And in the process, we've learned that the public sector does a lot of things better than the private sector. And the private sector does some things better than the public sector. And proactively involving the community ensures that their voices are heard and that we stay on task with their priorities in mind. So I'm here today to urge you to try something a little different. What if we pull those three pieces together, the public sector, the private sector, and the community, to work together with the city taking the lead? And in so doing, we can expand the resources available to the city to promote and develop our assets. Together, we can change anything. Now, presentations were made in December and January, and some misunderstandings arose. As a result of that, we believe we've answered all of those questions in the handouts you received today. In the meantime, members of our organization have met with Pete Lear and Mel Thomas, and we believe we have their support for this initiative. Now, we believe we've answered all of your questions and understood from our last meeting that if we did that, the commission would vote to approve the proposal to create our organization. But if any questions linger, I respectfully ask that you just hold your questions for a couple of more minutes. I only have 2 more slides. I'll be done quickly. Given that we've answered your questions, we suggest the following next steps.
Someone's buying lunch. Someone's buying lunch.
The outside world intrudes. So we suggest first that we work with staff to identify roles, activities, and potential outcomes. And as soon as city funding is secured, we'll file corporate paperwork and build a permanent board of directors based on the activities we identify in that plan. Please be advised, we've already prepared some suggested bylaws. They're in your handouts. We've prepared some initial paperwork for the corporation. We are ready to go. It's a big, big world out there. And Northport's potential is huge. There is a lot of work to do. And business development is a team activity. So we urge you today to take one large step forward for Northport's future and try something we've not done before. And work with us to make Northport the kind of city that all residents are proud to call home, a place where residents can live, work, and play. So I call the question, do we have your support for the city to invest $30,000 to move forward with the Partnership for Creative Economies, an organization dedicated exclusively to the benefit of Northport? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Langdon. I do want to say I was contacted this morning because some of the backup, I think the questions being answered wasn't in the backup, so that's why you have those sheets. It was sent to me, and then I sent it to Katie to make sure that we all had them put on our. I think the third page was missing. It was what I was told. So we had
These?
Yeah, I think.
These?
Yeah, I think the last page was missing from the backup or something. That's what I was told. So we had that there. So for whatever reason, a mistake, I'm sure. But let's move on. We're going to move on to questioning. Vice Mayor.
So just for my benefit, Mayor, is this only question time or is this question comment time? Question time, thank you. I needed to get that for clarification. Thank you, Ms. Langdon, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I will leave the next comment for later. Since you are the spokesman here today, I'm going to direct the questions to you and hopefully you'll be able to answer. Who wrote your bylaws?
We drafted them as a team. I'm going to call Peter up. He prepared most of the backup materials and can answer any specific questions.
Get to those.
But they're a pretty generic draft of bylaws, and they were reviewed by our interim board of directors.
Okay. Who answered the questions on the Q&A sheet that was provided?
I did.
How much time have you or a PCE, which is Partnership for Creative Economies for short, representative spent with city staff since December 1st, regardless if it was in a meeting or phone calls, planning, just general Q&A, that kind of thing? Can you give me an idea of how much time you guys spent with staff on that?
I'm going to estimate probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 hours.
8 to 10 hours? City Manager, do you concur?
I sent you I didn't add the hours up that were on there.
That's why I was asking,
So-
because I didn't get the hours for our Economic Development
Economic
Manager.
Development has spent a little more than that. She put a rough estimate of probably more than that, probably closer to like 25, 30 hours
Thank you.
of her time. But
Of her time?
yes,
Excuse me, the question was how much time?
I
we spent,
understand,
right?
I
And that's-
understand.
I don't know what staff's time.
So it's fair to say approximately 30 to 40 hours? Thank you. In the bylaws, back to the bylaws, they state that the bylaws were adopted on February 25th, 2019, and they were certified by the secretary. How is that possible when the Q&A sheet states that these are proposed bylaws?
Because they were never signed or adopted. It's just, what we did is we created those, just to give you an idea, we cannot adopt bylaws. A board of directors adopts the bylaws. So once the corporation is formed, you would have the board of directors review those bylaws and make any necessary changes, and then they would get adopted. It's not done before. An individual doesn't approve bylaws, a board does.
And I thoroughly understand how the bylaws come to be.
Okay.
But looking at them, it clearly says on the last page.
We showed it, we gave it as an example.
Okay.
If it's misleading, we apologize.
Yeah, and I don't see draft on here, so that's why I have to assume, based on the information that's given, that this is true and accurate. So they were not adopted.
No, they can't be.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. In the bylaws, it says that PCE is established as a 501c3, but in the in the Q&A, it says within 24 hours, it's going to be a 501c6. So could you tell me which exactly you're planning?
Sure, I'll say it once again. Those bylaws were presented as a draft. We apologize if we didn't write draft on it. And we didn't follow the normal procedure that you would look for there. But when you're forming a corporation, you want to put your board of directors together. They in turn would approve the set of bylaws, and we would move forward. So some of that was done. It was drafted from a boilerplate set of bylaws. It covered many, many issues associated with the corporation, so we thought it was very in-depth, and we would want to have that type of a bylaw submitted. So if you want to turn around and start challenging everything that we've written on the bylaws, I'll be happy to answer, but my answer is going to be the same. They were presented in good faith as a draft, just to give you an indication. You never even asked for the bylaws. We just showed you we were serious about moving forward, and that was our intent on that. If I misled you on that, I apologize.
Okay. So the only reason why I was focusing on the bylaws is because Ms. Langdon had said that your board came up and this is what you guys drafted.
The board reviewed the bylaws, and we thought they were in-depth. We never approved because we don't have a corporation.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I do think it's important. Yeah, I do think it's important to note that in the previous meetings, we actually, if you look at the process of a corporation, we've actually kind of forced them to kind of work a little bit backwards. So I do recognize there could be some difficultness and maybe some confusion.
I actually
from probably
disagree
both
with that,
sides.
but.
Well, I mean, I've formed multiple ones, so.
So now I have to wonder, if you're using these bylaws as a template, what the intention is regarding compensation, because the bylaws say there's no compensation. However, in your budget, it says $74,000 for manpower. So
There's no compensation for board members. It does not state no compensation. If
Okay.
they hire an executive director, that person would typically be compensated.
Okay, and that's what I needed the clarification on, so thank you for that.
But again, it's a draft of potential bylaws. So,
All right. Speaking of the budget that you presented in the question and answer section, can you explain to me why the city is paying more than your members' dues? Your members' dues in the budget shows $25,000, and then City of Northport's 30. So there's supporting members. I don't know what that means.
that budget, the way we came up with those numbers, and it's a budget, it's a forecast, okay? It's a forecast, a budget.
Okay.
It's not fixed. Our intent would be to charge a membership dues structure that would be affordable to a small business as well as a larger, and it would be consistent across the board. I think the number we used on that was 500, and we said we'd have 50 members is what we based that on. That's where you came up with 25,000. There's additional dollars needed, and similar to most nonprofit organizations, there's funding that occurs through sponsorship. So gold, platinum, bronze, et cetera, where a member could give additional dollars like they do at the Chamber and other nonprofit organizations, and I think the EDC does this also, where they buy a membership level that entitles them to certain things. It could be, you know, tickets to the annual dinner or whatever, but that's where the additional money would come from. So it was designed to allow the small businessman to participate and the larger companies who could afford more to participate at a higher level to help fund. So overall, the funding from the private sector is higher than, it's probably close to the 70% of the budget versus the city.
Just a couple more, and then I'll be almost finished, Mayor. Since you included the Northport EDC, I think it's like a presentation that was done in 2013, I'm not sure of the date, but it was included in the backup material. I felt that it opened us to ask questions about Northport EDC. Northport EDC, from my recollection, was about 7 to 10 years business, private business. Is that a correct?
Yeah, they were formed in 2011 and they dissolved in 2018.
Okay, so for about 7 years, you guys were in business. Prior to the dissolution, what specific projects did Northport EDC bring to, like, neighborhood development services for review or consideration for the SDR process?
For the what process?
SDR process?
SDR.
Staff review.
Staff review, where they go through the process, so if you're.
That would be the job of an economic development department in the city or the Sarasota. We don't do that. We don't bring projects to the table the same way. Projects that we brought to the table would be, an example, the Suncoast Technical College. And if you look, I think it's the November 4th, 2014 school board meeting, which was held in these chambers. The Northport EDC did receive recognition for the work they did, along with Nancy Dieter. So you can look up the records on the school board. It's the November 4th, 2014. The other items that have occurred, and I don't know, we have facilities that have come into this city, and it just so happened some of the senior executives of those businesses were chairs of the Northport EDC. One of them is the medical facility with Bayfront. Okay, Tim is a strong supporter, has been a strong supporter. He was our most recent chair prior to Kim French, and Kim was chair just to get the transition out. So a lot of that stuff occurred. We didn't take direct credit for it. We just facilitated and helped those businesses promoting Northport. Many of you know I've taken hundreds, if not more, people on tours of Northport, including you, to promote the city and show them what the potential is here. I did take an entire group of Bayfront personnel on a tour of the city, their senior management. Did that result in some of this activity? I can't say specifically, and I'm not going to in a public environment, but you can certainly pick up the phone and call these people and ask them. I would call the school board and ask them, ask Todd Doden. That's who we worked with during the program with the Suncoast Technical College. If you look at the newspaper articles that appeared on that, I'm the only person, if I'm not mistaken, that's in the private sector that's throwing a shovel on the groundbreaking. And it's referenced in there as president of the Northport Economic Development Corporation. So we did play a role, counter to what you might hear, but I'd certainly recommend calling the board members, ask them, don't ask me, and to put me in a public environment. One of the reasons we formed as a private was so that we could have private conversations with businesses to do stuff that they're just getting them ready and selling Northport, not having to report to the newspapers every time we had a conversation with somebody. But we didn't do anything with incentives. If we had a situation like that, I would call Ruth, and I'd bring Ruth into the equation.
Okay.
Or, you know, in one case we had with Mark,
2 more, I promise. The first
we had
one's
a
very
business
quick.
that came to us. According to the business, he was told that Sarasota didn't have a building that they needed. He called me, I don't know why, but he got my number. I took him and his wife on a tour of Northport. I got the Florida technology group involved. I got USF involved, and trying to promote Northport as a potential location for his business. As I understand it now, he has relocated to Sarasota. Okay, but we did play that active role, and we brought people together on it, and the city did know about that, at least at the commission level, if not at the staff level.
So it sounds like you guys did a lot of various things at the private level without partnering, like this PCE is requesting to partner with the city.
No, and actually, this PCE would want to be doing it in a similar way. What we tried to do was, rather than bring the city staff into a situation premature, you do some cultivating. You make sure there's a serious interest. Otherwise, what happens is it's like crying wolf. Hey, I got another opportunity for you. I got another opportunity for you. And people come and they're not prepped, they're not set up. We're having a conversation right now with a manufacturer, with robotics that is considering Northport. Very, very early stage. It's too premature. We haven't got commitments that they would even seriously be interested, but we're doing some of that cultivating. That's what we do. And that's all we do. Once that cultivation process is over, then it's time to involve the city, the county, the advisory boards, what have you, where their time is being better used because now you've got somebody who's really serious. And if anyone's ever worked for a company, when you took your boss out to meet somebody, usually you prepped your boss on what that customer was expecting, okay, so that they weren't walking into a blind situation. It's very similar. That's what we do. We're the ground people that are on the street finding those opportunities. I had one individual in staff who was excited about an opportunity with an individual, and we've been working with them for 4 years. They just found out about them. So we find things out in a different way than the government. And the government finds things out that we don't know anything about, because it's the circuit you operate in. So what we're proposing today is how do we work together and use those assets together for the first time right from the get-go. Let's define those roles. Let's make sure that we're not stepping on the Sarasota EDC's toes, and we're not doing what they do. None of us want to do that. We're not set up to do that. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't want to do the marketing. You guys do your marketing. The county, the Sarasota EDC does marketing. We're here as a resource to use if the city is interested in using us. If you're not, that's okay. Then just let us know that. We'll move on.
I do have two questions. And the first one, back in 2010, Northport EDC had approached the city for $35,000. And in reviewing of the minutes, it was for an economic development director for the Northport EDC.
The corporation was formed in 2011, so I don't know how we approached the city in 2010.
I'm sorry, maybe it's because it's referred to as Vision Northport, so
Well,
maybe.
Vision Northport's different.
Okay, so.
Totally different organization, totally different.
Okay, so could you help me understand what Vision Northport is? Is it related to
No.
Northport EDC
No.
or?
Vision Northport was an organization that I was one of the founders, to engage citizens. We reached out to, and the idea was we took the concept out of Team Punta Gorda and looked at what they did. They engaged 1,500 residents in building their city. That was exciting to me. How did they get 1,500 residents to participate? Well, they also had a hurricane that had hit. So Punta Gorda back in 2004 was destroyed. So they rallied around that. They also got a ton of private funding, which Punta Gorda has access to that funding, we didn't. So we went to the Gulf Coast Community Foundation and asked for a grant to the tune of $99,000. I think it was 99,000 something, but it was close to 100, almost 100. We got that grant. Counter to popular belief, Vision Northport saw none of the money. We smelled the check as it went from the Gulf Coast Foundation to, at that time, Wilson Miller, who did the study. We didn't receive any compensation. In fact, we underestimated the cost on it. We forgot to include the printing costs. So if any of you have ever seen the full-color 82-page document that was presented with Vision Northport, that was done because of private businesses that stepped up and paid money. We put an ad in there for them, but that's how we got the printing paid for. So we received nothing for that. So what happened was Vision Northport was getting involved in a lot of projects. There were committee meetings going on. I was a volunteer, and it was beginning to consume all my time. I was out literally every single night at these committee meetings. we needed a full-time employee. So we came forward and said, we need some assistance with an executive director that can do this, because I'm a volunteer. So my days are going to be numbered on this. I did it to help out, but I wasn't looking to create a job for myself. I had a job. I really did well with my background. So that's why we came to the city and said, we're in trouble. We could use some assist. And I think that, and I'm going back now, you're testing me, but I think that's kind of the storyline that would be the background story to why we asked the city for that money. A lot of great ideas came out of Vision Northport. That's where the entertainment district came from. That's where the restaurant incubator came from. The ambassador program came from. Tons of programs. Okay, we were getting 100 people a month coming to our meetings. And commissioners would come, and I think Commissioner Carrison was here, would say to us, we're seeing people we never saw before. These are people that aren't up there complaining about something, they're encouraging with really looking forward to opportunities and coming up with ideas. The restaurant incubator concept came from Kyle Curtis, Amy Schultz. So, and then those people invested their time to put it together. So that's the history of Vision Northport. That we met with the chamber back then. Bill, I don't know if you can remember this. I think you were here. But the chamber and Vision Northport got together and came up with a Toledo Blade plan. Back when Jackson Lab was looking to come here. And a committee was formed, and that committee became the Vision in Progress Committee. VIP, Jill, you were a member of that committee. In fact, we met at the at your storage facility there. And that group came up with a plan for Toledo Blade. The question was, how do we make this work? And the answer we came up with is private economic development.
So it's very similar to what's an offshoot of what Vision Northport and Northport EDC is what part of this?
No, Vision Northport and the chamber got together. They came up with a plan for Toledo Blade. The question we asked is, how do we make this plan work? And the answer was, we tried the public advisory board and operating constantly in the sunshine, which creates difficulty when you're thinking strategically. Because when you say something, like I say something here, and that's why I come with prepared statements most of the time, is I don't know what the newspaper's going to report it, how they're going to report it. So I write my notes down very, very specifically.
Nobody does.
Okay, everybody does. It does not lend itself. If anyone here has ever been in a retreat where they go with their company and they go away and they want to just get you to talk and come up with ideas, if you're sitting there with somebody taking notes that's going to wind up in your personnel file, you're going to watch what you're saying. So that's all we were saying. And what happens is you get a really stupid idea, and Ray, maybe you can relate. You'll come up with a stupid idea that really turns into a great idea, because the conversation follows a natural process. That's what happens when you're doing these creative processes. You can't do that with the newspaper sitting in the room. Love the newspapers, you guys are great, but you're gonna watch what you say, because what'll happen is your stupid idea will get presented, and it wasn't what you were presenting. It was just kind of an idea that you threw out to see where it would go.
I have one more question. He brought up sunshine, so I'll come back to that. If you could just give me a little added.
Well, I'll come back to do another round as normal. Okay, Commissioner Carrison.
Thank you for bringing something creative to the table. And thank you for coming up before us today, because it really does take a lot of guts to come propose something to a board like this. So I want to thank you for that first and foremost. In reading most of the, well, all the backup, some of the things that I had asked, I don't see those answers to. So for instance, the savings, taxpayers, dollars, how would this actual corporation help the average taxpayer? How do we justify the investment?
Okay, great question. And it should be noted, and I hope I get support when I say this, but we did submit those answers by the individual commissioners as a part of our documentation, but somehow it didn't wind up in your packet.
Yeah, I know, but
So
there,
Well, we just had delivered.
Okay.
it's not.
So the way we answered that question Commissioner, was while it is an additional expense, the resources that it could offer in terms of manpower, knowledge, and resources would far outweigh the cost. As an example, the Northport EDC plan had no out-of-pocket costs for architectural renderings, cost estimates, and designs. So when we put that plan together, that was all contributed by our members. We didn't pay for architectural designs, and if anyone has seen those plans, we had detailed designs for Warm Mineral Springs, for the different districts, the 5 different projects that were there, all complimentary. We had fly-throughs presented by Harvard Jolly Architectural Firm, no cost. That's how we can, and I'm not saying they're doing it, of course, I'm saying they did. But you know, when private industry gets together like this on a joint project, they can work together. A lot of times you can get some strong economies out of it. And that $30,000, I know you guys are looking to do your strategic plan, and you're probably looking at $50,000 to $75,000, and we did everything. If we did that now, this $30,000 that we're asking for would be less than what you would have to spend on the outside. Just as an example, we're not saying we're doing it for that price.
So
But-
are you saying that part of your deliverable would to be to help update the economic development plan? Is that what you're saying?
Within reason, yes. I've actually been in touch with an individual who was head of economic development for the state, and we received a proposal from him. That's Gray Swope. You guys know him. He now consults and came out with he and I chatted, and he said, what you really need to do is come up with more of a feasibility of that plan. And they came up with a proposal to us that I think came in around $55,000, $60,000. And these guys know what they're doing. He formerly headed up he was a keynote speaker, in fact, in 2013 or 14 at our annual meeting, when he was head of economic development for the state of Florida.
So what you're saying is that you have it under authority that the current plan needs to be assessed first and then redeveloped or updated. Is that what you're trying to say in a nutshell?
I think, you know, one thing I'm learning are there are 2 different kinds of plans. There's private sector plans and there's government plans. Mm-hmm. A government plan is a lot of detail, which you need to do. I get that. So when I look at the strategic plan for the city, it's a lot of check boxes of things that have to occur. When you look at a strategic plan that the private sector does, it's more of a painting of what the future might be, what the revenue impact might be, and what the expense is. So we look at things a little bit differently. Now, we do go back in, once you agree to a strategic plan, you do go backwards then, of course, when you do the execution, and you do your checklists. But you don't present, the private sector doesn't present the checklist as its plan. It presents a plan that the average person in this room could read, understand, and agree with or not agree with. So it's just, not saying one thing is good or bad, it's just the way it is. When I first started with the Northport's Economic Development Advisory Board back in, a long time ago, early 2000s, 2, 3, they said we have a plan, it's called a comp plan. Now, if you ever read a comp plan, folks, it's what, 3-inch binders? That are, how many of them? It's very in-depth. That's what a city government looks at as a planning document, and rightly so.
So it sounds to me like you're just going to kind of take off from what the past Northport EDC was doing, but this time with a little more teeth to try and, see, I'm still trying to struggle with what the deliverables are and how you justify the 30,000.
And that's a great point. Our position today, and this has modified based on the commission meetings, we're saying, look, we are a resource. We can bring a resource to the table if the city is interested. If the city's not interested, just say so, and we'll leave.
Okay, but
So if you're interested, if anything we present to you is going to that'll be our plan. We don't want it to be this group's plan, we want it to be the city's plan. The only way that's going to happen is we have to be sitting at the table from the get-go, figuring out what that plan is. Otherwise, we're just presenting to you, you're right, somebody else's plan, the EDC's plan, the Chamber's plan, anybody else's plan, but it's their plan, not the city's plan. We want to try something different this time. What if we sat down right in the beginning with the city's economic development department, with the advisory board, with the Sarasota EDC, lay out what we think the future could be for Northport collectively, and then divvy up responsibilities. What do you do best? What do you do best? What do you do best? And then we're all working on the same plan with deliverables that we can come back before the commission and tell you what is due and when. That's how we'd like to approach this. And that's why we're presenting this with a different approach than the past, which was, if we present you with a plan, then it's our plan. We don't want it to be that. We tried that. It didn't work. Does that make sense? No?
No. Because you said that your job in the corporation won't be to market, but yet I thought kind of one of the things I got the impression would be to market essentially.
If that's what the city wants us to do,
Okay.
then we would ramp up to do that.
All right.
If the city wants the Sarasota EDC to do the marketing, then they would get that task. If they wanted to give it to the department, they would get, whoever that task goes to.
Sounds like you're trying not to duplicate
We're trying not to
services.
duplicate anything and not eliminate anybody. That's not what our intent was ever.
The last part, my last question has to do with the bylaws. And now I understand that these are just drafts, that they don't really mean a whole lot. But the board compensation portion, it conflicts with your, where is it? Conflicts with the conflict of interest, and the conflict of interest is required by state law. So I think that if you do choose to go forward with this, then you may have to change that, because you can't have board of directors or membership have any interest within the 20% threshold and still serve on this.
Okay.
And the contract for board of directors would be a direct conflict. So you need to.
Point well taken, and that's
Okay.
one of the reasons, and Barbara mentioned, and Ms. Langen mentioned earlier, that we were actually recommended by one of the commissioners to say, rather than go through all that expense up front, because that's lawyers now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
this is
read this thing from a
definitely-
legal standpoint, okay? You hire the lawyer to do that, okay? Why incur those expenses? If the city's not interested, then there's no cost, no foul.
And honestly, your bylaws don't have to be this
I agree, that we do.
ironclad. I mean, they can be very, very basic. I too have put many corporations together. And they don't have to be this, but I get what you were trying to do, is trying to show the city, these are the things that we could do.
We want it to be thorough.
Right,
That's what it
so
was.
I get it,
I
I
like
get
the
it.
2-page bylaws.
So the board that is explained in the presentation is not the ultimate board, that's just an organizational board.
Yes, and that's a
Okay.
great point, because if we don't know what we're being asked to do, then how do we put a board together? We don't know the kind of people we need on that board. So first step is, tell us what you want us to do, then let us go out and recruit board members that support that initiative. And that's what a board should do. It's not just to get up there and have a plaque on your wall to say, I belong to the board. It's, I mean, you know, you're gonna add value somehow.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give up now, and I'm good. Maybe I would like to hear from the public before I maybe get another round, but
You what?
hear from the public before we do another round, because I'm, you know.
Commissioner Luke?
I only have 2 questions. I have a lot of statements, but only 2 questions, so I'll make my statements later. Are you proposing that the business plan that you have in the backup material that was presented in January 25 of 2013, is that your business plan that you want implemented within the city?
No.
Why was it presented then?
Because you wanted a business plan, so we said, there's one. And
Try
we
to
did-
cover that criteria?
I did present it to Mel, and her comment to me was, if I can paraphrase it, was that it looked like a good plan but needed to be updated. So if you want to use that and update it, fine. If you want to use something else, it's fine, but there's a plan.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
City Manager, Miss Mel is not here, I see. She's not in the audience. And he's making a statement of something she said, and she's not here to collaborate. Could
Correct.
you weigh in on why Miss Mel is not here?
Ms. Mel is not here because this is a decision for the commission to make, not for staff to have a position one way or the other. Staff will do what the commission directs. Mel is not here to say if this is a good idea or a bad idea, because until we know whether or not the commission wants to move forward with this organization, I just didn't think it was fair to ask a brand-new economic development division manager who's been here for about a month to sit here and make a political statement of whether or not we want to do this or not. If the commission directs this, we will, the staff will do what we're instructed to do by the commission. But at this point in time, this is a commission-level decision, not a staff member decision. So she's not here. Please don't take that negatively against her, because I just didn't feel it was her position to be in there and sit here and tell the commission one way or the other whether this organization was good, bad, or indifferent. If you have, Mel and I have met several times. If you have questions, obviously I can't quote what she did or didn't say in a meeting, but I feel like I can represent what her input would be. So if you have questions, I'll answer them.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate that interpretation.
No, that's okay. It's unfair to expect somebody who's brand new to even comment, especially not even having time to review everything. Along the lines of what Commissioner Carazone was talking about in the bylaws, it appears that board members cannot get paid, but there is a provision within it where the board can hire board members for any activity. So you're kind of have a board member and you're helping each other to gain employment and money, is what it looks like, cronyism pretty much.
It could look like that. Once again, that is a sample bylaws.
So this was not reviewed by an attorney, so at
No.
some point that
No.
will be reviewed and those things would be.
We did not expend any money to put
Right.
this together at this point, because it could be significant, and I'm not prepared to put that money up. I would, but I'm not prepared
Not
to.
have been
without
looked at
resources.
legally, but you stated that you drafted it.
Yeah.
And so is that the purpose that you intended, was to be able to benefit the board members, to be able to make money off of the projects?
No, but I will tell you, I do have a personal belief that if I have a lawyer on the board and we need legal review of something, I think that lawyer should be able to, because they volunteer, should be able to weigh in, assuming it's competitive. But I find it, I find it really sad when we bring volunteers into organizations to sit on boards, and then we use people who don't volunteer because of exactly what you're saying, and it's perception, it's got nothing to do with reality. And we now have to use somebody else who knows less about the organization, only because they don't sit on the board. And that's why a lot of people don't sit on boards, because it takes away from their money, their income. I mean, you're asking for legal input, and they can't get compensated for it. So it's tough to recruit board members.
Welcome to government.
Yeah.
Well, to
But
me,
again,
that,
those aren't for real, so let's just.
well, they were drafted by you said,
I'll
and that you
apologize
went
one
over
more time.
them.
I'll
And so,
apologize as many times
I
as
mean,
you
there
want
was,
me
there
to.
was quite a bit that was talked about in here of conflict of interest. And goodness sakes, anybody up here better not be doing something like that. So to find it in here,
Commissioner Luke, I apologize. I
put me back.
apologize. I apologize. It was not, we can't approve, you know.
Sue, I just want to hear the truth, and I asked my question,
told
and
you
I
the truth,
received it, so
and
I'm
I
done
have-
with my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
And I've said the truth all along.
I think it's very important that we understand that everybody that stands up here, whether it's on this side, are citizens just like everybody else. So we act accordingly. I have no other questions, but I know Vice Mayor has something. I just wanted to give the opportunity because Mr. Emmerich hadn't quite.
I'm good with questions.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
All right. You mentioned about sunshine. In your question and answer area, you said that a city commissioner would be on the board makeup. And I'm trying to understand in what role would a city commissioner play as a board makeup of the board, whatever.
I would think it would be similar to what you have with the Sarasota EDC that has a city commissioner sit on there.
Follows sunshine.
That would sit on that board. So their board meetings are open to the public. All of your board meetings are open to the public. If that's the case, then we would do that.
Okay, so is Partnership for Creative Economies willing to still formulate, knowing you must do everything under sunshine? Because there were many times that you had said that because of a private entity, you don't have to follow sunshine, and that's not true. The EDC of Sarasota County Corporation must follow sunshine.
By the law.
By law.
Of the sunshine.
And they also have exclusions to
Yeah,
that, which they
that's-
can
that's-
speak to.
that was kinda-
There are times when they can, if somebody is presenting them with documentation, they do not have to make that information public. I'm not sure the exact wording of it, but everything is not full disclosure. When you're negotiating with a company to move here,
But that's confidentiality, sir, that's totally different.
well, sunshine, it's keeping it out of the public's eyes, which is what
No.
sunshine is. But if that's the case, and it doesn't make sense, then we won't have a commissioner sit on the board. If it does, it's not my decision to make, it's the board of directors' decision to make once
Okay.
the organization is formed.
And this is part of the things that I was hoping would have been looked into with greater detail so that we can make an informed decision if we want to join or
Madam
not.
Vice Mayor, we don't even know if you guys want to use us or what you want to use us for. So how can I make a decision
Don't know
on
what
what
you're-
we're going to do?
So I'm going to go to my
I'm
last
confused.
question.
Go
And
ahead.
Mayor, if you can, Mayor, if you can indulge me just a little bit and give me a little bit of latitude with my question, I promise I'll get to it. All right. So on December 11th, Mr. Suggs made a presentation that they were going to work with the city on economic development. On January 8th, another presentation was made that the PCE will be the first point of contact for everything economic development related, and the PCE will answer the phone. So today we're having our third presentation. And I need you to please tell me exactly what will PCE do differently than the Economic Development Department that we currently have, what the Sarasota County EDC Corporation is, and what will you do differently?
I'm going to try.
And
this-
deliver it.
I'm going to try this one more time. Without sitting down with staff to see if there is any need and anything we can do to assist, I cannot answer that question. And I won't. We made a decision fundamentally not to present a plan because then it would be our plan. We don't want it to be our plan. We want to take those presentations. We messed up going into this, giving the wrong, I think, the wrong impression. We were always looking for a collaborative approach on how we can work together. Now, you can beat us up over those past meetings, but that's the truth of what we want to do. So to ask me a question like that, when I haven't sat down with staff to see if there's a need and what we could do, I can't answer that.
Okay.
So
Thank you for your honesty, and I appreciate that. But you have to understand, our role is quite different than yours. And based on those two prior presentations and coming here for a third presentation, I'm still having the main question of what are you going to do differently that you just said that you cannot answer without sitting down with staff. So I will leave the rest of my questions to another time when we get to comments.
Okay. I have no other questions here. Before we get to discussion, there has to be a motion on the floor. 'Cause
I
that's
had
not-
other questions, but I wanted to hear from the public first.
Same here.
Oh, okay. All right, then that's fine. I just wanted to understand that. All right.
I didn't mean to toss it like that, it fell out of my hand.
Stuff
Okay,
at you.
so I have a public comment from Mr. Bartolotta. From Carmine Miranda. You can probably just do yours from right there, as soon as you're standing there. And Anna DeShields, that'll be the first three. So, Mr. Bartolotti, you are first.
Okay.
You're standing there. 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, just before my timer starts, I'm speaking now as a resident of Northport, right? So this is not a part of any presentation that I'm making, am I correct?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. My name is Peter Bartolotta, and I'm a resident of Northport. I'm here today to ask the Commission to support and fund the Partnership for Creative Economies and create possibilities for Northport by bringing all the parties together to participate in an exciting economic future. Since I moved here in 1993, we have seen a number of different approaches to economic development. Never before, to my knowledge, has anyone suggested a truly integrated solution that includes the city's Economic Development Department, the EDC of Sarasota, the Northport Community Economic Development Advisory Board, and the private sector. And I encourage this commission to embrace the collaborative suggestions being made by the Partnership for Creative Economies. It's been said that government money should not be provided to a private organization. It's also been said that many of these approaches have been tried in the past with no positive results, and that the private sector should operate on its own. For those who say that government should not provide funding to the private sector, well, we already do. The Sarasota EDC, Enterprise Florida, and others, through our tax dollars, as well as direct billing. The number of organizations that have formed over the years here in Northport to assist, but there are people saying nothing was accomplished. Well, Sarasota Memorial Hospital Emergency Room came in while the Chief Operating Officer, Mike Harrington, of Sarasota Memorial Hospital was the chair of BDAP. Coco Plum came to be while an executive with Bendison was chair of BDAP. The Sarasota Technical College in Northport was born at the Northport EDC, and the organization was recognized by the school board in these chambers on December 4th. A large group of Tri-County business leaders who were on the boards of both BDAP and the EDC were introduced to the Northport market, and today many are doing business here and or pursuing businesses as we speak in a number of fields, including healthcare, tourism, education, and entertainment. Many of the corporations introduced to Northport by these organizations have contributed to the Northport nonprofits significantly. However, with no government buy-in, the biggest opportunities, including ecotourism, university, and a regional entertainment district, were left on the table, and the groups have dissolved. For those who say the private sector should work on its own, let me say the private sector does work on its own. And that's one of the reasons we continue to get what the private sector wants, gas stations, fast food, etc., rather than what the city needs. That being said, I ask you to consider what we can achieve by working together from the start. Northport's future, defined by our city with the Economic Development Department and working collaboratively with the Northport Community Economic Development Advisory Board, the Sarasota EDC, and the Partnership for Creative Economies, all working together for Northport's future. I ask you to listen to the emerging voices of residents who see a bright future for Northport and are willing to participate once again. Emerging voices that look for solutions and collaboration, that want to live, work, and play in Northport, that speak to our future, a future of hope, prosperity, and inclusion, and a future where you can achieve anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartolotta. Ms. Carmine Miranda? Thank you, Ms. Miranda. Good morning.
My name's Carmine Miranda. I live in Northport, off of
Here.
Toledo Blade, Plantation.
Can't hear you, sir.
Can you
Is
speak
the
up
mic
just a
on?
little bit?
Oh, sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I've watched many people up here and talked to everybody, and I guess being up here, it's a little daunting. I just want to say that as citizens, all of us, everybody up on the board as well, should come together and look to do the best that we possibly can do for Northport. Just want everybody to consider all of the facets of what they're talking about. Let's work to define a plan that we can all agree on, keep our biases out of it, and let's just make Northport a better place. That's all. I just want to say I support what is being said today, and when I look at the West Villages, I would like to see that level of economic development throughout our city so that we can all benefit. We have a sports park, we have revenues coming in that will help the city's coffers, because as this city grows through the years, whether we like that or not, it will grow. We're going to need those tax revenues for infrastructure improvements, hospitals, medical facilities, schools. So it's something that we need to do now. As we kick the can down the road, costs constantly go up. What we're trying to do now will only cost more later on. So just want everybody to be considerate of the citizens. We want things that we can enjoy. I don't want to be driving up to Sarasota all the time. I don't want to be driving down to Punta Gorda or Naples or all the way up to Tampa because I want to attend a seafood festival somewhere. I would rather spend the dollars in my own city, supporting my own city, supporting and collaborating and enjoying time with my fellow citizens. That's it.
Thank you, Mr.
Can we just clarify that it was said West Village is that level of economic development to the city? That is the city. So it is our level of economic development. I
was
just
the
want to
city
be very
doing that?
clear about that. They are our, that's our city. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
it
I don't
is
think
a-
that was what he
Yeah.
meant, but, yeah,
Yeah,
just
it's
for the
part of the
record.
city.
Just for the record, it is part of the city. That was not what you meant, Mr. Miranda. We- Yeah. Yeah, you're just wanting to see that level of service throughout the city.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Anna DeShields. Or Anna.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Anna DeShields. I've been a resident for 16 years, and I have my business here. I'm here today to support your approval of the Partnership for Economic Economies. I'd like to see more businesses providing higher-paying jobs in Northport. I'd like to see more unique restaurants and diverse shopping in Northport. I'd like to see a greater variety of artists, arts, and exhibits in Northport. With the amount of work required, I believe a collaboration between the city and the Partnership for Creative Economies will accelerate the city's economic development efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. I would like to recognize that Ex-Commissioner Yates is in the room, so welcome. And you are next, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wow, I just don't know what to say. I followed the previous two presentations and conversations, and I had various different concerns at that time, and I can tell you, listening to today, the concerns just keep growing. 2 pages of just concerns. I think it's fair to say that our city, our residents, our businesses, we all want to see things come to Northport. And in time, we will have those things in Northport. And I really think in all of these conversations, it's really been dismissive to see where the city has come in the last decade. This city has developed. This city has had manufacturing come. This city has achieved the things that the very residents are talking about. Is it all going to come at once? No, absolutely not. Households, density, or 105 square miles, that's a great opportunity. But it is also a greatest detriment from the perspective that it takes us more time to get the densities, to get the things to make sustainable businesses. And it's not all about development, as somebody alluded to earlier. Economic development has many facets. And if you ask every individual what their definition is of economic development, you'll come up with something different. I just want to focus on, 3 minutes is not enough, to really point out some of the things here that are of concern. I think it's great to have people come forward, want to help, but there are hundreds and thousands of residents that want to do the same thing. And if it's so easy to present an idea and say, hey, we want you to fund our corporation because we'll help you do good things, oh my gosh, you're going to open up Pandora's box. There's also, professionals in economic development, criteria, and I'm sure these folks have criteria and credentials from business people and being business people. However, when you talk about economic development, we just hired a professional with the criteria, with the experience that can truly get the city to places that we haven't been before by collaborating and working with not only this group of people should they decide to do their corporation, but with all of the other entities and resources that are there. We haven't even given her an opportunity to pinpoint and put those things down. That's the first step that we need to do. The other thing I just want to focus on is I'm going to mention some key words that I applaud all of you in serving with you that were so important. Free enterprise, private property rights, transparency, and making sure that we're not outsourcing things that we certainly do internally. That was a big concern. So look at these things and then look at what's being proposed, and you will see it is so contradictory to the things that we all have set up there and advocated for. This proposal is contradictory, and I really urge you to please stay focused, do what we've been doing, bring everybody together, but it's not necessary to go down this path.
Thank you, Ms. Yates. Joan Herron, Son and Wynn.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Joan Herron San Lewin. I love living in Northport year-round. Today I am strongly urging this commission to not pursue any further actions that result in paying for or supporting the creation of a nonprofit entity being presented today referred to as the PCE. This smacks of old cronyism of the public monies that past commissions indulged in. This new commission is more forward-thinking and more transparent and should not pursue this endeavor. I read all 4 attachments to the agenda item and have many concerns and comments. I'm involved in 6 different nonprofit organizations in our area, including archaeology clubs, garden clubs, and a chapter of the Florida Council of the Blind. Each club has dues and each club does fundraising events. They are not funded by a government entity. Most clubs elect new board members by the majority vote of the membership, not the board. It is inappropriate that a board member does not have to be a Florida resident. It is inappropriate that the bylaws call for a board of 5 to 21 members and that the board can identify as many ex officio members as desired and that the ex officio members would have the same rights as board members. It is inappropriate that the majority of a board may remove any member without cause. It is inappropriate that boards may deem a board member that has missed 1 consecutive meeting without a reevaluation with the chair to have resigned from the board. It is inappropriate that the same person may hold any number of offices, with some exceptions. It is inappropriate that the board votes on compensation of officers of the board. The board members don't get compensations, but officers do. I have spoken with many other citizens who also vehemently oppose the city taking action on the PCE. It is a self-serving that today's presentation contained multiple quotes from consultants without identifying the source of those quotes. In the attachments, the PCE did not address fully the Commission's concerns and requests. It is inappropriate for the PCC to supply a business plan that is 6 years old. The Commission requested a policy on how PCE would work with the city. The response was not to provide a policy, but rather the response said it would work with the city staff to create a policy. This is inadequate. The city requested PCE to demonstrate that it would not be duplicative. The response was, none of these groups will replace the others, but will work together to ensure all opportunities are pursued for the greater benefit of the city and its residents. This response does not address the request. The PCE seems to be a mechanism to sidestep sunshine laws and transparency. I repeat myself by saying the PCE smacks of cronyism and must be avoided. And P.S., the last presentation I intended on the War Mineral Springs Master Plan, we were told that you cannot vote for a presentation, it has to be an agenda item. So I'm confused if you guys are going to vote today or not, but I thank you for your time and I thank you for your service.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Barnhart.
Steve Barnhart, States Drive. If I'd have known this was going to be a carnival sideshow today, I'd have brought some money so I could buy some of this snake oil that I was going to peddle, or maybe we shall all have a drink of their Kool-Aid. I think P.T. Barnum summed this thing up best with there's a sucker born every minute. Folks, the biggest problem you've got here is demographics. There's not enough headcount in this city to bring your big box stores and some of these other businesses in that you want. You also don't have a per capita head count that's large enough to support this. I just had this same conversation with a mayor of a town up in Tennessee where I own a dollar store. They were going to spend $40,000 of taxpayer money to hire a firm to go out and solicit business to come into this town. I've sat in his office and I've made a phone call to a site locator that we're trying to bring in Aldi's into this town, and he reached the same conclusion. You don't have enough people in this town to even bring in another grocery store in that particular town. Don't throw your money down a rat hole, people, and that's what I told him. There are professional people out there that are called site locators, and they come and they will find your city and they will do all the homework for you. I had one located my property. We were going to get another neighborhood Walmart on my property down here on 41. I got through the first two committees with neighborhood Walmart, and unfortunately Walgreens closed as we were going into the third committee, and that killed my neighborhood Walmart. I sat in these same commission chambers when the city decided to spend, I believe it was $40,000 on doing a hotel study. Commissioner Blucher, I believe, was on that commission, and a fellow stood up in the audience and said, "Hey, why are you throwing away this money?" When I was a hotel site locator for 30 years. Folks, when you've got enough people in your town, we will find you. You don't need to throw your money away. So don't throw your money away on this stuff. One of the other problems you've got also is your own planning department. You're dealing under the guidance of Michelle Norton, who's no longer here. You're dealing with a plan that was proposed by Sam Jones 30 years ago. Your plan's outdated. You got a ULDC that you acknowledge is out of date. It won't allow businesses here, won't allow businesses there. They've got a letter from me that I would spend a couple $1 million developing a storage facility on US 41. Oh no, we can't do that because that's not in our vision. Well folks, your vision is wrong. You need to change what you're doing. You just did it with the pawn shop. In closing, I would like to say that one of the principals involved with this group came into my office at one point in time and basically told me, says, if you're not going to join our group and pay our dues, that we're not going to promote your property. And I felt like I was being extorted, and I'm hearing the same thing here again today, that if you want to join in this little group and pay some more money, then we'll, give you extra benefits. I don't feel like being extorted again.
Thank you. Mr. Rich Suggs, if you're out there somewhere. While we wait, all right, I think he left. Ms. Nancy Cece.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Chacham. I'm a Northport resident. And I want to thank the commissioners who have already responded to a letter I wrote last week on this subject. I'm here to say that I do support the Partnership for Creative Economies, and I do ask you to consider that the investment requested of the city is, it will pale compared to the benefits to be gained from taking this approach to developing Northport's economies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cece. Okay, we're going to move back into our second round of questioning. Commissioner Carrison.
And just real quickly, would this corporation use funds for political positions like the Sarasota County EDC does?
I would, wait a minute, like the Sarasota County EDC?
Yeah, so for instance, Sarasota County EDC put something together for the sales tax referendum, the Legacy Trail referendum, single member district referendum. And so does this Northport Corporation feel that they would do something similar?
I'm unaware of how the Sarasota EDC can do that. Now, they may have formed a PAC that does that.
I think it goes by their budget. I'm not real sure how they did it, but they did it.
But I don't see this group being a political organization.
Okay, so that's a no, is what I'm trying to get at. Okay, and I'll refrain for the rest. Thanks.
Okay. Do I have any other questioners?
One question.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
I have the benefit of living in the city for 30 years. I have to be careful how I phrase this, so give me a moment. Could you please explain the pay-to-play?
That was your term, Commissioner, I didn't.
No, it wasn't my term. Somebody had, I know that it was a commission term. I don't know exactly whose it was.
It came from the commission, I'm not sure, but a lot of people will say that, you know, you join the Chamber of Commerce, you pay to play. You join the Sarasota EDC, you pay to play. I mean, you pay dues. I joined the Northport Arts Center, I pay to play. I mean, if you want to use dues as an answer to pay to play, I guess that's what you're trying to get to. There's a lot of organizations that charge dues. And the members that are paying those dues have the right to benefit from what that organization is doing. I don't call that a pay to play. That wasn't our term, it came from the commission.
Okay, so would this PCE require anybody that wanted to approach the city and know that they kind of have to go through, do they have to go through you to come to the city? Can they go to the city? Do they have to pay your dues to be on your radar or show anything in the city that relates to them?
I would think not, but that would come about through conversations with staff on what roles we're going to play. And I think we said it earlier that the city would be the city would steer this whole thing.
Okay, because that wasn't the presentation the last time, and that's why I'm confused.
Oh, crucify me.
You weren't involved, sir.
But
It was
I'm
Mr.
saying, I've apologized for that, and you keep telling me, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Take that, and it's changed.
Okay, but that's what was presented, and it changed. And now this is being presented. What is to say it's not going to change again?
I don't think we'll come back again. I think this is it. I don't think we're not here negotiating. We're just saying, do you want to use an organization? If the answer is no, then state it.
I'll wait until my comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. I have no further questions.
Before we move on to comments, there is a direction, I believe, that this organization is looking for. Typically by the guide of Robert's Rule, you wait until that direction's made, and then you start the commenting. So if I understand correctly, the direction that you are looking for is that the city commission determine whether or not we are willing to be partners with you, as we're partners with some of these others, with the PCE, appropriating $30,000 somewhere. I mean, obviously, we'd have to budget for that. Appropriating the $30,000 for that. As you know, we are starting our budget process. Actually, kind of begins tomorrow. So, so that is what you're looking for, correct? Let me ask you, Mr. Lear, do you see there being any kind of positive influence? This organization, Sarasota EDC, the Chamber, our own economic development partners, do you see any benefit that this organization may be able to play as partnerships with all these other entities?
Well, like I said, one thing I want to state first, obviously the staff will do whatever we're directed to do.
Sure.
And I do want to state for everybody's benefit, I've mentioned this to some of you individually, if not all of you, that I don't want this to be looked at as a replacement of anything. If the commission directs to go down this path, it's not in place of the EDC of Sarasota County. It's not in place of the internal economic development that we do. As far as the benefit of this organization, the hard part for me is establishing what they're going to do. I believe that economic development, and speaking with Mel as well, economic development is done in many different ways by many different people. I would need to know how they're going to be used and what they would do in order to tell you, yes, there's a benefit.
Right.
Without that, I can't say yes to it.
Sure.
And I can't say no. I don't know what they would be utilized for. And I know that multiple commissioners have been wanting that question answered. So without an answer to that.
Are you sure you're not in politics? Well, you sound very political right
But
now.
I'd love to answer the question for you, but I really can't without having the details to that. That being said, Mel and I met with Mr. Bartolotta and stated that she needs 6 months to figure out where we are as a city before she could probably sit down and move forward with anything like this either. She just got here. She's been here roughly a month. It's too early to ask her, which is why she's not here, of what she could utilize this organization for. So that's why she's not here today, is she's still getting her feet wet. She just got here. She couldn't answer it either.
You and I had a discussion in talking about this, and I believe it derived kind of towards the end of one of our last presentations, which was a process to maybe help that go slow along. But in turn showing our commitment to an organization, which if I understand correctly in our last meeting and in our discussion, is if the commission decided, all right, you know what, we can see a benefit doing this. We establish that in the budget, give direction, however that happens, that in the budget, we want to appropriate $30,000. That appropriation, if we do that today, does not bind the city by any means for this commission to that $30,000. There's still agreements have to be drawn up, contracts between the city and the PCE, correct? They
Yes,
still have to take
what we
place.
discussed is that if the commission decides to move forward with this, and we put it into and the commission also puts that funding into the budget, it's a tentative, if today is, do you want to go down that path or not, tentatively? I can't tell you, again, without having an agreement, that the next step that staff would take, if commission voted yes to come up with an agreement, is we would work towards bringing you an agreement similar to the way we're working with the Sarasota EDC and the interlocals, with all the other entities involved, of what would those deliverables be. As Mr. Bartolotta has stated today, he's looking for us being staff to let them know what we could utilize them for. Staff has not looked into that because I don't have the direction to do that yet.
So if we make that decision to throw that into the budget, when would that actually go to them?
The funding? Well, right now, it's not in this year's budget, so the alternatives are either A, do a budget amendment to add it into this year, or B, add it into next year's budget, which would be my preference, because
Everybody has time to.
it gives us time to figure it out. The money will, as far as money going to this or any other organization, until you have a contract in place, the money's not going anywhere. So until the commission approves an agreement, I can't just open up a cash drawer upstairs and pull out $30,000. I know that sounds kind of flippant, but that's not what I mean. Just saying, I'd have to have a contract signed by the commission, approved at a public meeting, well, approved by the commission at a public meeting, all of the details worked out. It is a ways away at best.
Right. Mr. Emmett, did you have any questions? I thought you said you might have one or something after.
No, I don't have questions. I have comments.
All right.
Can I just jump off of that the whole organization, and I guess this would be for the city attorney. I'm going to try to propose it in a question. In order for you to do business with any government entity, there are other things that you must apply for, not just applying for your nonprofit, correct? In the state of Florida. You have to, in order to, just for example, in order for you to receive funding as a donation, you would have to apply for a certain certificate through the Department of Ag.
I'm not familiar with what you're referring to, but
Okay.
what I can say is this, and then maybe this will kind of answer your question, or you can let me know if it doesn't. As far as action the commission could take today, I believe the commission could discuss and act on whether or not it is interested in an endeavor like this and interested in a dollar amount. You could set aside, you could give direction to the city manager related to the budget. However, I don't believe that the city commission can vote today to pledge money to an entity that does
That
not
does not
exist.
exist, okay.
And I think that you would do that through the adoption of the contract at some
Gotcha.
later point. Now, if the commission is interested in, likes this idea, is interested in partnering, you can, you can take a poll or a consensus regarding that to kind of, give the individuals who are presenting some confirmation so they can move forward in their plans. But I don't believe you could take a vote today and say, we want to give $30,000 to this organization that doesn't yet exist.
Okay.
Is that
so
helpful?
We can give direction.
I mean, that does help,
Yeah, that was
but
kind
not
of the
exactly
direction
what I
I
was-
was actually asking for, so thank you for asking.
And it also, Commissioner Carestone, will depend on the nature of the relationship, which will be solidified in a contract if the commission goes that direction. Because no, not every vendor of the cities has to go through any kind of specialized process to provide services to the city.
They don't all have to register within the state to be a contractor by the state in order for you to do business with the government, because you used to.
Not that I'm aware of, I don't.
No, we have out-of-state businesses. There are certain things that they would have to do, yes. Since they would be incorporated in the state, yes, they'd have to get, go through SunBiz, get all of those registrations done.
Right.
Those steps. But as a vendor, I don't think they have to go through Department of Agriculture.
Well, they would as an organization in order to apply for their 501c6.
No.
They're still going to have to get that license to get donations. That's
Well, they may have to
any
take those steps
nonprofit.
just to achieve certain legal status
That's
based
what I
on what
was-
they're going to do, but that's not really tied to doing
Well,
business with the city.
But what I'm trying to say is that all those steps, it's not just filing and approving. There's other steps involved in doing business with the city and taking donations that are necessary and in order to meet those legal obligations.
Yes, if they
And
wanna
that
become a-
may take up to 6 months to sometimes a year to do all of that. And that's what I was trying to get at through questions, but I couldn't. So I just said it.
Right, which was kind of the direction I was going of, the time frame that was mentioned. That if we were to give direction, there's still a lot of things, there's still a big slit between a cup and a lip right here. That's why I say it where I'm from.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
Never heard that one.
there's a lot that, I mean,
That
would have to
discussion?
be done.
Yes.
This is on as a presentation, so we can't really vote on it. I mean, we can have discussion on it. You can kick it down the road again, come back for a fourth time for it to be on the agenda. It's a presentation, so it can't have approval.
Right.
It can be shot down, or it can be kicked down to be brought back again, but
Down
you
and up
cannot
again.
vote on it as a presentation.
We can give direction towards what we want to do. Yeah, yeah.
Right, a
yes, by
consensus, as we've
not by
done the
motion.
other times
Yes.
before.
And sometimes I get the word motion and consensus, I just throw out words. But, yeah, so before we move on to any comments, I would like to see if there is any direction that we would like to give concerning this.
Sure, I'll make, do you need a motion? No, we can't do
Well, no, we
motions.
can't do a motion, I'm looking for direction.
I'd like to see if we can get a consensus to thank Mr. Bartolotta, Mr. Suggs, and Ms. Langdon, sorry, for their time and part ways.
And what? Oh,
Part ways. There's no point in proceeding.
Yeah,
There's
I'm not
nothing-
interested in going any further.
We've been through 3 of these. I'm not interested in going through 4, 5, or 6.
Do I have a
You
consensus?
can ask for a consensus, Mayor?
Do I have a consensus?
I got to tell you,
Oh,
I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no, because I am just disappointed, because there are certain things that if I was presenting it, I would have come up with. I would have proposed that, that some of your deliverables would be to, say, find funding opportunities, to provide free marketing and promotions, to create position papers on, say, code changes in ULDC, collaborate between businesses and the city. That would be future businesses and current businesses, to become a free mediator between the builders and the businesses in the city. Collaborate for a plan to bring art into the city and other things that are actually in our comp plan, but that we have not been able to attribute and do. I would have said that we would turn around and assist current businesses in code issues that, where there's questions or there's permitting issues, that you could then collaborate between the city and the business. For an example, the community gardens, to kind of be the arm of that, to advise and not delegate. And then I would have created my board with individual types of businesses as their representatives. I would have had a banking rep, I would have had a real estate rep, I would have had a service provider rep, an environmental rep, a government rep. And then that board would then turn around and do the work of all those deliverables. Now, do I believe 30,000 is needed? Yes, you've got to have you've got to have that CEO. You've got to have that person that wraps all of that together and does the work. So I can understand that. But I was really hoping to hear that solidified plan of this is what we're going to do. This is what our board development's going to be. This is how we're going to spend that money. And I do believe that there's a value to it if it's put together correctly. But I can't sit here and justify $30,000 without knowing what that is. And if someone came with, this is what it is, I could justify it.
Mr. Bartolotta, would you like to respond to that?
I think I've answered that, I don't know how many times today.
Just that, yeah.
If we meet with staff and staff needs support in negotiating with a potential business coming in, that would be an ask. We would say, yes, we can, no, we can't. If they want us to go out and find funding, yes, we can, no, we can't. That's what happens in the preliminary stage. If I came back to you with a list like that, and by the way, we have spoken to people, and what I get back when I say something specific, well, we're already doing that. So it's like we're not on the same page. So all I'm asking for is, does it make sense to sit and talk? If it doesn't, then let's move on. That resource is gone. Do with it whatever you want.
Since we do have,
Sorry.
since we do have a consensus, a direction here on consensus, obviously.
Since I'm the one that asked for the consensus,
yeah.
can I speak to it?
Yeah,
Maybe-
Yes, I would like to say something concerning it. Since,
Go ahead.
yeah, I understand. Because obviously, I mean, it's been quite public that if I'm remotely for this group, then I'm damned if I do.
Yeah. Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah. However, by the same complaints, if I vote yes for this company, the same complaints have to be addressed if I vote with this consensus, which would be a no. So my question is really to the attorney, to just kind of give an overview of what the legal obligations are to recuse and to vote.
I got you.
So, Mayor, state law mandates that a member who's present at the meeting may not abstain from voting unless there is a conflict of interest or in a very narrow situation in a quasi-judicial proceeding. So, in other words, if you're here, you got to vote unless you have a conflict. That's not just a kind of a moral obligation. This Florida statutes tell us that as well. There are an entire series of ethical statutes that set forward what conflicts of interest are. Kind of an overview is, if the item would inure to an officer's special private gain or loss, there'd be something special to a commissioner that there wouldn't be to the general public or to a greater group of people. And that extends beyond just you. It also extends to your relatives as defined by the law, which is a very long list, and to your business associates. If you have that voting conflict of interest, there's a process you have to go through, and with paperwork in addition to announcing that and recusing yourself from the vote.
Each individual has a viewpoint, a moral code, a moral standing. So let me ask you, does perception usurp Florida statute by anybody's individual perception of what is right or what is wrong? Does it usurp the statute? Like if somebody says, hey, Chris, vote for this, is just bad, it just looks bad. Does that usurp the statute?
That does not constitute a conflict of interest under the statutes. It has to meet the statutory definition.
So by which I'd like to make the public comment, because it's been reamed over and over and over again about my public perception, about my partnerships, about these things going on. Let me make it quite clear. I have absolutely zero partnerships with anyone in this organization. I have absolutely no intention or no gain whatsoever from anything that happens here. As such, I did make mention a couple of years ago because of Mr. Suggs, whenever we were appointing him to an advisory board, I did make mention at that time that we had about a month where I was coming into a business and he was leaving a business where our paths crossed, and we just kind of, he kind of moved me in and then he moved out. And as such, at that time, I had stipulated we had about 3 months difference, or 3 months that we had been parted. The city attorney did, through asking the city attorney, it was determined by me that there was absolutely zero ability for me to refrain. As such, moving forward in these previous presentations, let's first make clear that we never had a motion, we never had a vote. So that doesn't apply anyways. But that being said, 2 years ago when it was presented to me that there was no conflict of interest, the reason why it wasn't brought up again was because there was absolutely zero reason, or to me, zero perception of conflict or collusion, whatever you want to call it. So that being said, I am obligated by state statute to do these things. So that was what I was getting in all of it. Vice Mayor.
But that
I just wanted to say that before we move forward, to make sure that the public knew that I have absolutely no way to recuse myself by statute.
But that's a vote, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're just taking a consensus,
but-
which in it itself is not a reason for
I know.
conflict, right?
I'm just trying to head off the banner
Mhm.
here.
All right. No, it makes sense.
Yeah. Vice Mayor.
Put a consensus on the floor. If I can speak to the consensus, if anybody else wants to speak, I want to open the floor. Commissioner Emmerich has been quite
What was your motion?
Yeah, I
That's why I was
understand
giving it
that.
to you first.
I can speak to it first, or if you want to make sure that nobody else wants to speak, that's fine.
Okay, let me go to Commissioner Emmerich because he has waited quite patiently. Mr. Emmerich.
Well, and we're still in the middle of this consensus, correct? So, this has been an ongoing subject for 3 presentations now. Done a lot of homework on this issue, and this is where I stand. During this process regarding this possible partnership, I have met and discussed concerns and attributes about this possible partnership moving forward. I have spoken with Mr. Suggs, Mr. Bartolotta. I've spoken with Mark Huey with the Sarasota EDC. I've spoken with the city manager, Mr. Lear, and I've spoken with Mel Thomas, the economic manager. I also spoke with Mike Moran, Sarasota County Commissioner. I've spoken with numerous citizens to their pros and cons. And also, commissioners have received emails both supporting and not supporting this proposal. Even today, when we have public comment, it is for, and 4 against from the public sitting in this gallery. So I have paid attention to this. In the beginning, there was a concern with who the people were that wanted to create this partnership and what their ulterior motives were. So basically, I separated all personalities for or against this partnership and solely concentrated on how this partnership would affect and benefit the city of Northport and its citizens. I believe that the city of Northport is definitely in the best position for economic development right now. With all of our newer staff comes fresh vision. There will be no more it's my way or the highway approach. That good old boy system is gone. They were in it solely for themselves, and it showed. So we learn and we move forward. With the addition of Mel Thomas, the city of Northport has solid reputation in order to pursue responsible development. With the completion of the Brave Stadium, this will be an automatic driver for unprecedented business and tourism in Northport. which has already begun with interest from a couple hotels, a Texas Roadhouse, more development along the Cocoa Plum, and other possible developments in the works but not yet proposed. But they will come. I feel timing is the key. I do not feel the city has done its own due diligence in allowing Ms. Thomas to form her power team and do what she does best, which is economic development. I have 100% confidence in Ms. Thomas and our city staff that what we can achieve in Northport will keep us unique and will help us develop responsibly and hope to bring back the pride of the citizens to say, hell yeah, I live in Northport, it's awesome. So in summary, after all the meetings, the discussions I have had going over the pros and cons of this partnership, I cannot, in good conscience, support it. I would also suggest this commission recommend to the city manager that we give our staff a minimum of at least 1 year to organize our economic development department, formulate our strategic plan, and be able to attract the businesses and job markets that Northport needs, and including and utilizing citizens' input. Thank you.
Excellent.
So that would actually, that's part of your consensus?
That is my consensus. My vote on the consensus would be not moving forward.
Right, so it looks like we will not be moving forward. I would like to stipulate, and I would like to say, I do absolutely, I emphatically believe, I appreciate the Sarasota EDC, I appreciate Mel Thomas and everything that she's going to bring. I do believe that it is important for Northport to have a laser focus right now. I never considered or saw this by anyone's standpoint, that they would take the place of anybody, take money from anyone, or step on anyone's toes. That was never any understanding of mine. And as such, I do believe that an organization like this is absolutely needed. I don't think it has given its proper placement in history. I mean, I'm talking about the Northport EDC now. I'm kind of combining you guys too because you're here. And, well, you're both here. You both were there. And as such, I think the process you were looking for this time around was completely and emphatically different than last time. So now, as such, we will never know. We will never know. And I thank you so much, as Commissioner Carasone did mention, it was quite brave. You both knew, you know, through watching the other ones that you know, there would be some tough questioning by some very kind, I mean, these commissioners, they want nothing but the best for the city. This entire commission does. But we all have different ideas of what that looks like. You know, we all want to get to the same place of greatness. We just have different paths to get there. Okay. But as such, I do want to say thank you. I would have been in support, but thank you for coming. Thank you for all the work that you've already done. Yeah. And hopefully we continue to see you around town.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Speak to this.
Yes.
I believe that there is a opportunity for this PCE to form their own corporation on their own and work as an independent entity, which is similar to how the chamber works, and work and partner with the city as needed. I spoke with Charlotte County EDP, the president of Charlotte County EDP. They don't take one penny from the government, but yet they do amazing things for their community. I don't think PCE is ready, as we all have now agreed. We need to have Mel, we need to show support for Miss Mel and get our strategic plan in place. I think that is our first duty. She's only been here for a few months. We have no idea how she will shine and how she will benefit the city. I support economic development in every facet, but that's what Mel was hired to do. This is not personal. This is all about what the facts that were presented, the questions that were answered. The city is available for all business projects, regardless of their size and scope, to come to Northport at any time. with or without this partnership for creative economies, with or without Sarasota County EDC Corporation, our city welcomes every business that comes to our city, and that includes the Waffle House. They are economic development too, regardless of what anybody may say. They contribute to our city. Gas stations contribute to our city. Mattress stores contribute to our city. It's the land use and where they're able to develop those is part of economic development. It's not what I would like to see, but this isn't what I want. This isn't what any individual wants. It's what the city wants and what the city needs in here. We have a lot of work to do, and I know Ms. Mel is going to take us to a level that we cannot comprehend at this point. So I also believe city staff should not in any way be helping a private entity form what their private entity is capable of doing. That is not our role of government. A private entity should have everything formed, this is what we're going to do, and then come to the city and say, this is who we are, this is what I do, how can we help the city? Not the other way around. So thank you for the no vote, and I appreciate their time. I cannot stress it enough. I appreciate Mr. Suggs and Mr. Bartolotta and Ms. Langdon, everybody else. Thank you for their time.
I have no other commenters. Would you?
Can I
Yep.
just,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it doesn't really have anything to do with that. It's just that if you open a door for a layer of bureaucracy within one department, you open the door for that same layer of bureaucracy in other departments. I had a couple of citizens come to me, one of them about, well, if you can do a partnership with economic development, what about public records requests and environment? So you would have had two people coming forward asking for a partnership and money to start organizations, to put another layer of bureaucracy upon our staff in two other areas. So I'm glad the door is closed for those types of reasons. Thank you.
With all the other partnerships we already have. Okay, so we're going to move on to our consent agenda. At this time, Mr. Lear, did anybody request or acknowledge they wanted to pull any items as of noon yesterday per consensus?
There was a request to remove item C, just so that.
Or pull it.
Sorry, so that one clarification could
Sure.
be given on it. I don't know if the commission still wants that one pulled or not, so I'll leave that up to you all.
Okay. Would we like, well, I tell you what, I will, let's get a motion to approve this agenda with any items pulled.
I'll move to approve items A, B, C, D, and F.
I
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
think said pull C.
C as in Charlie.
A, B, D, E, F. Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Carrison, seconded by Vice Mayor. Let's take the vote. That passes unanimously. On to item C, purchase one new Ford Transit van for estimated $29,235.85 from Garber Ford, Inc., Mr. Lear.
The question that was asked was, this item is on here as approval. It was because we thought the second reading of the budget amendment that was approved for first reading last week would also be on this meeting. So this approval would be tentative of the approval of the second reading on March 19th, because due to noticing requirements, that second reading of the budget amendment could not be on today's meeting. So it will be on March 19th. So this agreement, and you'll run into the same situation later on with item 6A, that both of those need to be tentative of the approval of the budget amendment on March 19th.
Commissioner, or Vice Mayor.
Thank you for capturing that so eloquently. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the new Ford Transit van contingent upon the passing of the budget amendment at the March 19th commission meeting.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
Nope. Again, thank you, City Manager, for stating it so correctly.
Commissioner Luke? Nobody else? Let's take the vote. And that passes unanimously. I'm going to move on to general business. Item A, Master Services and Purchasing Agreement between Axion Enterprise, Inc. and the City of Northport for body-worn cameras. Presentation, City, what?
Can we take 10 minutes, please? It's,
Okay, let's take 10 minutes.
it's already noon.
Oh.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
10 minutes.
I
don't know
was
how
in a
long-
groove.
I'm in a groove too. I just don't know how long this presentation is going to take and what we're going to, how. I just think,
Then we'll make it 10 and see you in 15.
This is an approval of an agreement. There's only a presentation if you all want one.
It's killing me.
There's only a presentation if we want one.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and take a 15.
Yeah.
It's already playing the game.
15.
Yeah, you know what that means.
We'll be back in 15.
Just as long as I have a quorum at a 10, we're all good.
Which I
Which one did we end on?
Body cameras is where we're going.
Oh, okay, yep, all right. That's where we ended. Oh, no, that's where we're at. All right.
And we broke.
We are back. We are moving on to 6A, which we opened up before the break, and I will turn this again back over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor.
Recap. Give us a recap.
You all had a presentation last week on the body-worn camera and the whole process of this. That was part of one of the things that the budget amendment was on as well. So first of all, I'm going to say that this would be contingent on the budget amendment passing on March 19th. I know that you all have received some emails regarding competitors to this vendor. One of the things I do want to point out is not only did we, why we picked the vendor, but in the Captain Morale, or sorry.
Whoever he is today.
What we know he's not is an ICOP. That's what we know.
That's right. He's not the ICOP anymore. Yeah.
Always going to be ICOP.
He's previously known as ICOP.
He's here to answer all the questions you may have, but the one thing I do want to answer for you all is we did follow the procurement process. Our codes and state laws were followed on this. You know, that was mentioned in some of the comments that you all received. If you have any specific procurement questions, I'll do my best to answer them. If not, procurement staff will be here as well. But I just want to open it up to Deputy Chief Morales first, and we'll go from there.
Good afternoon, Commission. Deputy Chief Morales, Norfolk Police. I'm here to present to you the Axon contract agreement, and with me today also is the sale representative for Axon, is Jeremy Deegan, here to answer any questions you have on the contract.
I'm ready for a motion
I have
if
one
you have
question.
questions.
I don't see any buttons. Did you push your?
Maybe we got to read.
Apparently I don't see it. All right, let me just re-up. Oh, there it is. All right, Vice Mayor.
Just one very, I hope, simple question. How long have we had a business relationship with Axon, and what is that relationship? What have they done for the city in the past?
With Axon was formerly known as Taser. We've had Taser with our city for, I want to say, since probably well over a decade. I can't give you the exact, Commissioner, but it's well over a decade.
Long enough for one of the other commissioners to have been tased by their product.
Yeah, it was,
as well as myself.
You didn't.
And my wife.
5 seconds.
Thank you very much. So we have a long-standing relationship with Axon, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. There's, I believe, you want to make a motion?
Move to approve master services and purchasing agreement between Axon Enterprise, Inc. and the City of Northport. Approval pending budget ordinance approval on March 19th.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor. Anything to that, Commissioner Luke?
The gentleman from Axon gave some really good information to me in between the break. Can you just tell us how many municipalities use this product and how many of them you facilitate?
Sure. And again, thank you for having me this morning.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Jeremy Deegan from Axon. There are, I think, roughly 18,000 law enforcement agencies in this country. About 4,000 of them have 5 people or less. Roughly, hard to get an exact number, 6,500 have a body-worn camera program, and over 5,000 of them rely on Axon. So we are the leader in the market by a wide margin, and happy to partner with Northport as well.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, I don't remember, did you say you had something?
Yippee! Yay! Let's vote.
That wasn't where I was going. Okay, let's take a look. I don't see anybody else, I mean. That passes unanimously. There you go, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work by all of you.
Thank you, everybody.
Very much.
Appreciate it, guys.
Chief,
Thank you,
Deputy
Chief.
Chief,
Thank you,
thank
Deputy Chief.
Okay, we're going to move on to item B, appointment of
But
one
not
Northport.
volunteer for tasing.
Appointment of one Northport resident as City of Northport representative. So, City Manager, I'll just give that to you.
Actually, this one is not mine. This one's the city clerk's item.
Well, it says City Manager, I'm just telling you. City Clerk,
I'm going to move down here, I'm sorry.
please state your name for the record.
Catherine Pito, City Clerk, City of Northport. We have-
Taxpayer?
I'm sorry?
Taxpayer? Oh, city
I
clerk, okay.
am.
All right.
And a taxpayer.
Employee, taxpayer, you know.
I was just trying to flush out that she fulfilled her contract. Go ahead.
So we have a position for a Northport representative to serve on the Sarasota County Citizens Advisory Committee for School Facility Planning. We had 2 residents apply. Both of their applications were attached as backup, and we will leave it for commission discussion to determine whom they'd like to appoint. Once somebody is appointed by our board, they'll go through Sarasota County's appointment process for their board, so we'll notify them of that once somebody is selected.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, Jill Luke.
I have a
Commissioner Luke.
question.
Yes.
I don't know, I mean, both of these people that submitted were excellent, excellent people. To choose which one I think would be able to fulfill the obligation, more correctly, can you tell me what this committee actually does?
To be
Because it
honest-
talks about facility. Are they, actually doing a physical building facility, or?
I am not sure. The county did not provide a lot of information about the functions of what the committee is going to be doing, so I'm not 100% sure.
Do we have anybody on the board that understands what this committee is, like Commissioner Carrison? Miss been around here for 2,000 years.
What they do is they look at their long-term planning, and they'll look at probably data points and whether, say, those data points would allow for a future school in, say, the city of Northport, city of Venice, or wherever else. And then the other thing is that they'll probably touch on the hardening of the school facilities, kind of that kind of stuff.
So not really.
That's how I understand it.
We have the city manager.
I read the back, in the backup material, but it didn't, it sounded more like it was soft material.
Oh, it
and
is.
not-
It's an advisory board.
Yeah, and it's not really advising about the actual building itself, but more the planning.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Future planning, yeah.
All right.
But it's still all data points. I mean, it's an advisory board,
Commissioner Carrison, I have nobody else. You said-
Yeah, I'll move to approve Frederick Koenig, I believe is the name. Is it Koenig or Koenig? I don't know.
That's what it
Frederick
looks like.
Koenig to the, as the representative for the city of Northport for Sarasota County Citizen Advisory Committee for School Facility Planning.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Carrison, seconded by Vice Mayor. Anything to that, Commissioner Carrison?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's really a matter of who came in first. I see that the difference was probably by a week that this Mr. Koenig came in, so I believe that,
Both quite qualified.
yeah, who is quite qualified, so, thank you.
Exact criteria I was using, who came in first,
Yeah,
because
they're
they are
both
both
qualified. Yeah,
so extremely qualified for the
Really,
position.
People don't know how hard this decision is. When you got 2 or 3 people, and all of them are qualified, so. Who was seconded that motion?
I spoke.
Oh, okay, let's take a vote. I don't see anything else. That passes unanimously. We're going to move on to public comment. I do believe I have some.
It's 2 cards, but it's 2 different things. I don't know if they get 6 minutes. I don't think so. They only get 3, so you might want to explain that.
Mr. Nunez, you gave us 2 for 7, but you only have the 3 minutes for the 2.
2, 3 minutes for 2, I'll make it quick.
All right, yeah, so it's not 6, it's 3 for the 2.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Give it to him.
Go ahead.
Yes, I will go. Okay, my name is Hector Munoz. I'm an Army veteran, resident of Northport. And what I want to do is bring up the Motorcycle Awareness Month that's coming up in May. Spring is in the air, and if you're fortunate enough to live in Northport, it's pretty much all year round. You've seen a lot of motorcycles on the streets and on the roads. The freedom of the open road and longing for that has been around for well over 100 years. We're seeing more and more motorcycles in the area. The fact is that in 2016, 4,976 motorcycle riders and passengers died in crashes, and non-fatal injuries that year totaled over 88,000. These fatalities among motorcycle riders and passengers increased nearly 3% from 2006, and 8% increase in 2015. This is staggering, considering that motorcycles account for 13% of all traffic fatalities, and they only make up 3% of registered vehicles and 0.7% of miles traveled. So taking that into consideration, we're having over 88,000 people that are dying in here. Something isn't right. Bringing up a Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month is something to bring to light for drivers to think motorcycles, to keep an open mind for that, and also for motorcyclists to understand that the drivers have blind spots. There's other traffic that they are hidden behind, and these drivers can't see them. So what I'm asking is the commission to consider a proclamation designating May Motorcycle Awareness Month for 2019. And as a member of the AMVETS Chapter 312 Riders, I'm asking to request that. Also, my other public comment is for the community and commercial gardens. As one of the topics been brought up, we've had a few delays with that. The last thing in February, we're told that it's at illegal, and then another department or made a process, and then I was told that it's not by staff. It has not made that out illegal. So there's a little bit of a conflict there. Our community isn't requesting more Dollar Generals. Our community isn't requesting more gas stations in our neighborhoods. Our community is not requesting more pawn shops, or as a former commissioner pronounced, porn shops in our neighborhood. Either one we do not want in our neighborhood. We're wanting community and commercial gardens. Stuff that the family in our neighborhoods, all the other stuff can be at 41 and made throwaways, but what we're talking about is in our neighborhoods, in our local areas. We're wanting this. We're tired of the delays. We'd like to see some progress. We'd like to see it get done. And recently, PZAB meeting was canceled, and there is no agenda update as of right now. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Munez. Can we get together and figure out where this is for Mr. Munez, and also get with him concerning the the proclamation?
Should we take a consensus
Yeah, let's
to
do a
have that proclamation presented in May?
Do I have a consensus?
Yes.
Do that.
But we did it. Now we have a solid consensus.
There you go.
Yep.
First Thursday meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah, we did it last year.
To read it.
Yeah.
And you know how I love reading.
Well, we'll make sure we have a full house for you.
Yeah, okay.
And answer to your,
Just to get an update on the commercial gardens memo of some kind,
Do we have a
please.
consensus on that, too?
Yes.
Okay.
Not just an update, I would like to know why two different departments are stating two different conclusions.
It sounds like
So-
it's in PZAB, right?
What did she say?
I was having low
Written
blood sugar.
mid-bite.
I'm mid-Mandarin.
Mid-Mandarin.
We finished our legal review. There were some follow-up legal questions recently that have also been completed, so it may not have been that there was conflicting information, just depending on the time the question was asked. I know that NDS is prepping it for an upcoming meeting. I don't know what the meeting dates are.
If you could send a memo to all of us on that, I would appreciate
We
it.
got the
I don't have
answer.
information to offer.
Do you have an update, sir?
I'd like,
Mr. Lear, would it be all right? I mean, can.
For a moment, if
answer
you
that
could-
Through staff or something? I'm just asking.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner.
The process.
Frank Miles, Director of NDS. We do have the final product out of legal, and we have it queued up to be at the May commission meeting for completion and your consideration.
Great, thank you. There
Thank
go.
you.
so when's it going to PZAB then?
Before then.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's going to PZAB.
It's the process.
I'm just making sure it's going to PZAB, so,
Right, it will
Thank you
go to
again.
PZAB.
because
Absolutely. Mr. Bernhardt.
Steve Barnhart. Before I start, I'm not familiar with the commercial gardens thing, but I own a piece of, or 5 acres of commercial neighborhood property on San Mateo, and if they're looking for a site for commercial gardens or something, it's not clear to
See?
PREP, but, and like I say, this is just totally off the cuff, so I don't know what you're doing.
It's coming up
Great
in
job.
a couple meetings.
Okay, no, I told him I want to talk to him. Okay, Steve Barnhart. 3 minutes goes really quick. I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say in my earlier presentation. The commission has a travel budget. I would highly recommend that the commission, either individually or as a group, go to the International Shopping Center Convention in Atlanta. It takes place every year. It is a wonderful experience. Jim Blucher raved about it when he went to it. I was there in 2007. I was wandering around and encountered a booth there, and they were presenting Cranberry Commons right here on US 41 in Cranberry. Folks, these people do know that you exist. You are on the radar. As far back as 2007, you were on the radar. There was also another project there, can't recall where it was here, on 41. So don't think you're being bypassed. Like I said before, you just don't have enough head count here yet, you know? And you can throw all the money you want at this development, and you're not going to get anything until you got enough people. If they would have had some of the restrictions in Port Charlotte that you've got here with your ULDC, you wouldn't see half these mom and pop businesses that you see in Port Charlotte. And the mom and pops are the backbone of everything, and they're the ones that, as a group, bring in the big box stores that what you're after. You really, really need to tear that ULDC apart and revamp it. It's basically made you the city where you can achieve nothing, you know? And I don't think you want that reputation. Like I say, that couple $1 million that I was going to spend on a storage facility here, I'm expanding my facility up in Venice because you're not getting that money because you are not cooperative. Now, if you want to change that, and like I say, you just changed something on 41 with the pawn shops to allow that business to expand. Don't be a business killer. Used to go to Ruth Buchanan and tell her all the time, says, you were at loggerheads with the planning department because they've got this ULDC and this antiquated vision of what the city should be. And until you expand that vision, you're not going to get the growth that you want because you're going to run people just like me off. You know? Thanks very much.
Yeah, Mr. Barnhart, and on the 7th, we will be addressing non-conforming issues, which will maybe address them what you're talking about. Thank you.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Barnhart, just so you know, we are in the middle of the ULDC rewrite, and we're having a community conversation on March 25th, I think it is.
March 25th.
So your input would be greatly appreciated at that meeting, and there's also a website that you can put your input on too. Okay, so we are in the middle of it, and we want to hear from you. So appreciate that.
I believe that's 530 Shannon Staub Library, isn't it?
I believe so.
Maybe City Manager, if you could get Mr. Barnhart the information about the ULDC meeting and also the website that he can go to, I would be grateful.
Certainly will.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Commission Communications, Commissioner Luke.
May I go first only because Miss Patsy, Miss Katie has to leave.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
so
yeah.
sorry.
That's okay.
Do you mind?
No.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
I just go down the line because that's number one.
I had the unfortunate opportunity, no, that's not even the right word. Unfortunate witnessing of one of our teen court parents berating Miss Sue in the clerk's office. I understand that this is not a one-time event. This happens quite frequently because of what I am perceiving as miscommunication between teen court and their parents. We cannot have our staff talk to in the manner that Miss Sue talked to. We cannot leave our city hall open after hours with nobody here for the teen court meetings or for teen court workshops. I don't know what to call them. I'm very concerned about it. And if y'all witnessed what I saw, you would be just as concerned as I was. And I think we need to have a conversation about it because teen court, as great of an organization as it is, and it is needed in this community, there are boundaries that I feel are starting to be crossed. So if Miss Katie, or I think you, Mayor, are on teen court, can help us resolve some of these issues. I wanted to make sure y'all were aware of these issues, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation before Miss Katie has to leave.
And just really quick, because I don't think I can talk to you directly about this. Maybe I can. I don't know. I don't necessarily know it's a voting
Or in a
issue.
public meeting, you should be
Yeah,
able
you're
to.
fine.
Well, what I'm saying is I have no idea what happened. So before I go to teen court, I would like to have some background as to what took place. The city clerk has that. I can get with you maybe after this and we can go into detail about what happened so I can bring that back.
And that's
to
why
Heather.
I brought this up, because I witnessed it, and I wanted to make sure everybody here is aware of it.
What time of day did you witness this?
It was like in the afternoon-ish.
4:30.
Yeah, it was.
So it was during our
Yeah.
hours?
Oh, yeah, we're
Okay.
here
But it was when
operating
we're
business.
getting ready to have a teen court session here?
It
No.
was this past Monday where teen court was supposed to be in the chambers, and it was canceled. And there was an upset parent who was here and was not notified it was canceled.
But this doesn't happen as an isolated incident. This, I understand after speaking with you, is common. It's very common for Miss Sue to be the brunt of those conversations. And I don't think they were appropriate in any manner, but I can't regulate how another adult acts towards another one. But it's unacceptable.
Okay. Commissioner Carrison.
So, just first of all, there is a new director coming. The past director will no longer be here, and I think it's this week there'll be that shift in a different person.
Director.
For the
The director.
Northport.
Oh, you're talking about,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Sean Slapp will be
Sean, but
replaced.
But the director of teen court is Heather
No, I
Todd.
meant, I'm
Is
sorry,
Sean
I guess he would be the manager
or a
of the
counselor or-
Northport, I'm not even sure what the title is, but we'll have a new Northport manager, per se. And that they have their own key cards, so there is no reason to leave the city's doors open. The manager should be here in a timely fashion to make sure that parents are here. Also, the other subcommittees that they have, which is counseling, usually mostly counseling and teen groups that they have as part of their services that they provide. Those things are done here in certain rooms. I honestly think this is a matter of a lack of communication and misunderstanding. I think that we need to maybe, at this point, get a memorandum of understanding together.
Yes.
That these are the things that we expect, and in return, you will have this, and this, and then get that approved by the board of both parties, and then this way, it's spelled out, there's no questions, and it's all in writing.
I
And
agree
would
with
be
that
my-
100%.
That would be my suggestion.
I think this morphed larger than what any of us had anticipated.
No. I think
No,
that's.
it's what I
hope
thought
that-
of, but I
Yeah.
didn't know we went forward without an MOU.
Yeah.
Oh, that is, business-wise, we need one.
That's where the problem lies. Anyways, I think city manager has.
Mr. Lynn.
Yes, I just wanted to let you know, the deputy chief, ICOP captain, whatever we're going to call him today. Just get out, let me know. They literally just spoke to Heather Todd. She's now aware of this as well. I know the city clerks reached out to them as well. They're going to look into this, make sure it gets addressed. As far as the MOU, when this was originally done, it was, they would have access to these certain things. It was just a commission direction to do it. And we did. I have no issue, we work with city attorney's office to get an MOU. I think at this point, it has grown to that ability. When we first started this,
Yeah, it was just give
we
them
had
space.
hoped
Just give
it
them
would
space.
grow. It was like, give them space, and it was all these possibilities, and it was all this is a wonderful thing, which it is a wonderful thing that
But they've
is
grown
now
like
available.
1,000% a month.
And they grew, I think, faster than we anticipated, and you're right, it's now time that we formalize it. So, yes, if that's the direction of the commission, we'll develop an MOU, we'll get with the city attorney's office, come up with one, identify what they can and can't do and what we expect out of them.
I am all for that.
Thank you.
I think it'll help clarify.
Mr. Image?
Yes.
I just have one question. You said that this just took place and it's happened in the past. Are we referring to one single individual performing the act, or is it multiple? people coming in and accosting our
I
employees.
only saw one time, but there are many times that I will see Miss Sue upset. No, I'd say, you know, are you all right? And she'd say yes. After discussing with Miss Katie, this is multiple people, multiple times, multiple instances where because Miss Sue is basically the live body in the general area, that's where all of the miscommunication from teen court and that frustration
This is where they
gets directed. So it's, nobody should have to endure what I saw happen.
No, absolutely, and I agree with that. I just wanted to know if it was the same individual. If it was the same individual, why is this individual here so much? And that just makes a difference.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katie. At least now we've got it on the record, so thank you.
McDowell, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so teen court's done. Thank you very much. I attended EMO 3, very informative. Employee luncheon, which was awesome, and I really appreciated Commissioner Luke helping me be able to greet all of the employees in a very quick manner so I could get up to EMO 3, only to sit in traffic.
manner.
Yeah, the ULDC community forum that we held earlier, my only suggestion when we hold the next one, the placement of all the easels were like in this cramped little semicircle, that while you're trying to read this very complex, dry material, you're hearing all these people talking about this one. There wasn't a lot of space between, so that these conversations were like hovering right over you while you're trying to read. I had a couple citizens make that comment to me, and I practiced it and went, oh yeah, this is not good. So maybe the next time have it spaced out a little bit, just a suggestion.
I'm sorry, I'm guilty.
No, it wasn't just you. It was, there was many people with many different conversations at different easels, so it was just difficult to try and read. The Charlotte County and Sarasota County joint meeting, that was great. I'm so glad that they did it. Reminder that tonight is the Sarasota County School Board's meeting, which Ms. Katie already alluded to. Speaking of that joint meeting, Sarasota County expressed concern about the dangers of River Road. And I know this commission had expressed very similar concerns about the dangers of River Road. Is it possible to send our letter that we sent to the county to Charlotte County Commission so that way then they know that we're also concerned? I was going to make public comment and didn't think it was appropriate. So that way then they know we're also concerned about it, and maybe joint forces might get some resolution for that road.
The letter that we sent about the curve, you want us to forward that to Charlotte County?
If you could, please. Thank you. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you for letting me jump in on that.
Sure.
Oh, one more. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We had recently voted on doing the Economic Development Strategic Plan. I don't know what the process is that's going to be followed for getting that strategic plan in place or, you know, out for consultation. Can we have them submit an RFP for a proposal instead of an RFB for just a bid?
It wouldn't be a bid.
It wouldn't? Good. So it would be an RFP for proposal? Thank you very much.
Time to work on it now.
Commissioner Luke?
I was only able to get to that joint meeting briefly, but absolutely loved the comment by the chamber director over in Inglewood.
Comment about.
Oh my goodness, he was
hoot.
awesome. He's like, you keep referring to us as South County and West County, and we like to refer to ourselves as Inglewood.
Loved it.
I just loved that comment. It was great. But yeah, it was a very effective meeting. Employee Appreciation Day, that was just awesome. Congratulations to wonderful staff and everybody who did receive recognition that day. That was great. And then, of course, we had our proclamation for the Braves during the San Pedro Festival. So thank you to San Pedro for making that, available to us. A question that I have, in the writings or the code, I should say, that we have about our advisory boards, are advisory board members, when they're termed out, allowed to stay off a certain amount of times, years, or whatever, and then come back? Because
The code does not read that way, Commissioner Luke. It reads that they have 2 terms.
Right.
So they can't come back then?
They're not supposed to. They've been
But is
being
it
allowed to.
consecutive terms, or?
I'd have to pull the language back up, but I know that I've looked at it and
Thank you, Katie.
in my plain reading of it, it appears they have the 2 terms and that's it.
Because in the past, the
so, I
intent
mean-
was to allow them to come back after.
We could look at the language and we could, look at how it's been applied. My suggestion is if that is truly the intent, it's always best to clarify the language. I mean, the first rule of statutory construction is to look at the language and let the plain language speak for itself. So if the plain language speaks for itself, regardless of how we've been applying it, that's what the code says. So if we've been doing something that doesn't follow the plain language, that doesn't mean we can continue doing it.
All right, is it, is it the board's wish that this come up on an agenda? If it is, I can go ahead and place it on agenda for us to discuss.
I think you should get the definition and clarification first.
Want?
Well, no, of what it is. And then if you want something different, or if any of us want something different, put it on the board agenda. You have to find out the definition first. What does it say?
I thought she just stated it.
Oh.
She said, I believe. You never say, I believe with an attorney. That just means I'm not real sure, but I think.
I've read it before because this question came up. I don't have it in front of me, but sure, I can look at it and report back to you if that's what the commission would like.
That's what my suggestion would be.
Okay, how will that go about? She will send an email to all of us stating what the code says currently, and then we can decide whether we want it on an agenda to discuss, whether we want it to stay that way or
Doesn't
change
even
it.
take all of us to do that. If you look at it, you don't like that definition, just put it on as an agenda item, and then we'll all discuss it. Yeah.
Okay, because it's stating one thing and we're doing something different. And I would rather state what we want and follow it.
Or if you want, you can just put it as an agenda item, we'll take a look at the whole thing, just right off the bat. So you have that obligation, or, you have that ability.
And just
To clarify, I haven't heard specific direction.
Just one comment.
We got to get clarified direction to the city attorney. Oh, yeah. Because I personally think that it's not, if it's saying what you want, then there's no sense in putting it on the agenda.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get a consensus. Would we like to go ahead and get a definition emailed to us concerning what the intent of that is?
I think it would be a legal opinion on the intent.
What the intent.
Right? Because it's not necessarily the definition.
Well, let's just make it a little broader so I can look at it and give you back the information you need.
That's
Just to
why
ask me to
just
report
a legal-
on the codes, the application of the code related to term limits for advisory board members if they can sit out and
There
serve
you
again
go.
following their second term.
What she said. I'm a yes.
Can we get a consensus on that?
It's coming to all the commissioners? Yes.
All the commissioners.
I'm good.
Okay, we have that. And then you can make.
Then whoever can
Yeah,
decide.
yeah, absolutely.
If that's what they want it to be, then it's fine.
Well, I was
If
just
they
saying
want
we
it
didn't all
changed-
have to do it. One
Exactly.
commissioner has
But I
the
think
right
it's
to
a
do so.
discussion that all the board members need to have because there is a conflict there. And I just have to state this because it has come up a couple of times, especially during our comments, that we're doing right now, that one commissioner will state something and staff will run out and do it, or they change what they're doing because one commissioner makes a statement.
Never heard
And
that.
that cannot be. That is not what it is. It is a consensus and agreement of all the board doing it and stating, for something to be followed. it's not right, one commissioner states something, and then it becomes.
The design is all 5 of us become one person.
Exactly.
And it takes
The
the 5,
majority,
or the
exactly,
majority, yeah.
exactly.
That no
you're
one
talking
specific
about.
commissioner has the ability, and staff does not have to listen to direction from one specific commissioner.
Exactly.
And I've never seen that happen, that one commissioner had someone do something.
It just did. She asked for that letter to be sent to Charlotte County. I mean, it just happened in this conversation. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And we didn't, as a body, say, we want that letter to be sent.
Can I get a consensus
Not that
that we
I'm
send that letter?
opposing it, but it's
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yes.
Mr. Emrich?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have a consensus to send the letter.
Thank you.
Good point. Yeah, no,
Thank
that's a
you.
good point. Are you all done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kirsten?
Nothing.
Commissioner Emrich?
The only thing I want to say is I attended with Commissioner Luke at the opening ceremonies at the festival. What an awesome night. I mean, I got to see and meet and talk with a lot of different individuals out there, had a great time. We promoted the Braves like we said we should, and we had a good community event, and thank San Pedro for allowing us to be part of that, because it is an awesome event every single year.
Wonderful. I did attend, is there anything else, Mr. Emrich, you good?
No, I'm good.
I did attend EMO. I'll have everybody know I was on time. The other 2 were quite a bit late.
I don't know how you did it.
But apparently, I was the 5 minutes before whatever record, whatever it was that happened, that took a 3-hour drive
Oh, man.
to Tampa.
To
Apparently,
Tampa.
apparently it happened directly behind my bumper, so I was there on time. If you guys need to know what happened in that first 2 hours, I'd be happy to let you know.
I actually wound up, 15 minutes late, that was it. I was very lucky.
I was about an hour,
Yeah.
about maybe an
So-
hour and a half. I got at the very tail end.
Yeah. So, but anyways, it was very good. It was very productive. I felt like it was very informative. We did, kind of like we did our IOPT. They had one there called a FiOS B, which was more about emotional character, which I thought was quite fascinating. And,
Did you
and,
find you had some?
On the inclusion and affection side, I was almost 0, but on the control side, I was about as high as you could get.
Yeah.
So Debbie said I can concur. But she said I'm trying. Okay. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one item I'd like to bring up. We received a letter very recently from the school board regarding SROs. As you all may remember, when we had the joint meeting with all of the entities in the area up at Suncoast Technical College in Sarasota, the school board was asked to let us know what they wanted for SROs for the next year so we could start budgeting that. So they sent us a letter stating that we are welcome to keep the SROs at Northport High School. They're going to take over the other schools, but if we want to, they're only going to pay us $65,000 a year for the 2 officers there, which is significantly less than we get right now.
65 each or?
Each. For one of the 2 officers. Right now, they pay for the middle schools as well as a supervisor as well. With that, I'm going to call the chief up. He can give you his recommendation on whether we should move forward with that or allow the schools to take over the SRO process completely with their police force.
Todd Garrison, Chief of Police. I've met exclusively with my staff about this. This is a very difficult decision because I support our police department and our schools. However, because of the financial impact and ultimately the school board police department will be taking over the high schools the following school year, that this is only biding us another year in the schools. Because of the financial impact on the city, I would recommend that we pull those resources back. We put those officers internally in our department to build up our programs that we offer here in the city. And we just continue in a support mechanism with the school board police department here on forward. That would be my recommendation.
Can I ask a question? So they have their own police department. They are addressing concerns on the campus. But ultimately, an emergency happens and they call 911. And we have to respond anyways, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What's the financial impact of that? Do we have a a agreement that says that we will charge them X amount of dollars for our services that we provide?
No, it's under mutual aid with any jurisdiction, police department, municipality, or county.
So
Under
we're
mutual
paying
aid.
the school board for their police department, we're paying city taxes for our police department, we're paying the sheriff's department for the sheriff's department. At what point does it become dual taxation?
Well, you know, we all work together in a mutual aid environment, and it's reciprocal. If we call upon their services, you know, they're not charging us either, so it is reciprocal. It's-
We call on the school board
Well,
services?
Like, for instance, the sheriff's office. You
Oh, no,
mentioned
no,
all
I'm
these
not,
different
I get
municipalities.
the dual, I get the sheriff's office and the complement between the city and the
Correct.
sheriff. I get that.
Correct.
I am trying to figure out where this dual mutual agreement would be in the school's police department. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Where would they complement us?
Right now, we're going to be more, providing them more support than they are giving us. I mean, it is what it is. We are a larger operation than they are right now. They are a growing police department. And it is their mission to be in all the schools, and under their purview, that's where they're going to be.
Okay, well, I support your opinion on pulling out wholeheartedly. I think it's time. It's time that they have to figure it out on their own, so.
I agree. I'm in agreement with it, too.
I think we pay enough in taxes already.
Looks like we got something coming here, so I was just kind of waiting.
He's gonna talk about mutual agreement. I can feel it in my bones. I know him. What?
We're good.
Okay. So is there anything that you're looking for? Are you looking for us to give direction in anything? What do you?
We would like
what are you
a
asking,
consensus I know it's, you know, they've asked us to respond to the letter that they sent us of whether or not we're going to put the officers in our budget for next year or not. We'll prepare the budget, however, but we need to send them a response in writing to their letter. So if the commission is good, we'll word it as the commission plans to present their budget next year, or the department will present their budget as though the school's taking over them. So I believe our agreement ends on June 30th anyway, so they're not going to enter into a new agreement with us on July 1st.
And so you're instructing that at that date is the date we start pulling out? Or the date we pull back?
For the next school year, correct.
Right.
Can I get a consensus? Yes, go ahead.
So this takes effect
Oh.
July 1st?
Keeps turning on.
We would finish the contract that we currently have, so we would not renew a contract with them.
Okay, so the renewal of the contract is only for the middle school?
No, the current agreement is for the 2 middle schools and the high school.
Okay,
And the only agreement that they would enter into starting on July 1 would be for the 2 high schools at $65,000. But what we're recommending, $65,000 per officer for the 1 high school.
Vice Mayor, they gave us notice that they are going to be occupying the middle schools next year. So that would just leave us with the 2 police officers in Northport High School.
so I'm going to ask, why don't they take care of Northport High?
They'll have to when we pull out.
They're going to.
They're going to. It's because.
You're saying, I'm sorry then, if you're saying that starting this next school year, we are going to be responsible for the high school officers too?
No, what we're recommending is that we not be responsible for that. They offered that they will pay us if we want to stay in Northport High School, they will only pay us $65,000 per officer.
Okay, so we're not going to have any SROs from the Northport PD in any of the schools in Northport except for possibly Imagine?
Imagine, yes.
Okay, so if we decide not to do this and just say, yeah, fine, take it over, we're done,
As of
Okay.
the end of June.
as of June, go for it.
And this is the same agreement that's been offered to everybody in the county. It's not just specific to Northport.
So I have to also then ask, is there joint training? Because if we're getting the 911 call, God forbid if we ever get that, Is there training between the 2 jurisdictions and maybe even the 3 jurisdictions with the Sheriff's Department, the City of Northport, and the schools, police department?
Right now, Chief Enos is in the process of developing a joint training program. He's only been in that position for a very short time, and he's encumbered a huge task. But we will be working on some future mutual training since we are going to be responding to those incidents. He and I just spoke 2 weeks about it.
I would think that that would have already been done and first on the list of things to do.
Well,
I'm very disappointed to hear that that's not already happening.
Well, everybody's trained in the active shooter response and stuff like that.
They are trained, but it's not
No,
together.
We are too. It's a unified training program that we're all trained.
Yeah, but you're talking about each party and then how they play together in a situation.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and the fire department.
Right.
Too, but,
So-
yeah.
You only said that
Is
'cause he
there-
showed up.
Commissioner Scott Titus for Fire Rescue. I just want to say, in addition, so we have been working with the school board, the police chief, and all of the fire department chiefs. Chief Enos is working on policy. So there's a lot of policies right now. Police has a policy for example, school shooter response. National Fire Protection Association has just come out with a recommendation on how we respond to those things. So putting all those things together to make sure that we work under a unified command system, that we're all doing the same thing when we go, is, you're absolutely right, it is in process, but it's one of those things that's always kind of working, and Chief Enos just took over. So those discussions are happening. We're setting up those on how those policies work, how they intermesh with each other. I just wanted to pop up with Chief Garrison because we talked about it as well. So we're all there on the same team, but it's always kind of a moving target as the world around us is changing, the things we do. One of the things that we would never, ever have considered in the past, so if you all remember back 100 years ago, there was a horrible fire in the Northeast. It involved a school with nuns. A bunch of children died, nuns died. That was really the advent and the birth of fire prevention as we know it now. Fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, stuff like that. After that happened and all those laws changed, we never in a million years would have thought that we would try and protect in place when a fire alarm goes off, because the goal would be get everybody out. The world has changed. There are people that pull fire alarms on purpose. When you empty into the hallways, there can be somebody out there that's a danger. So we're looking at things now that we've never thought before. Maybe the idea is to shelter in place. And so as you look at the different disciplines, as we try and meet the needs of our community and our children and keeping them safe, those things are a measure. The National Fire Protection Association says, no, everybody has to go out. The reality is law enforcement says sometimes it's better to stay in place. And so as our disciplines come together in the goal, ultimate goal of protecting our children, this is happening at a much higher level than just on this community level. So if you would, I promise you that we are all working really, really hard on this, but it's not an overnight solution.
Isn't it, the Marjorie Stoneman Act gives you, what, a year, I think, to do the training sessions together or something? And it hasn't been a year yet,
No.
so that's mostly, and the new chief has only been there like a month, if that, so.
He's done a lot in that short
Yes.
time.
Thank
There's
you.
a lot of
Thank you,
dialogue
Chief.
going on between the municipalities, and there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are being done to harden and protect our schools and our
Yeah.
children. Let's face it, that's our number one.
It is.
So we're not gonna take that lightly, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'm all for not having them. As much as I like our police officers in those schools, because they get to interact with the kids on a totally different level than any SRO that's with the school board. They know the community and stuff. It pains me to have to say, yeah, pull them out, because I think there is a mutual benefit having our officers in the schools, but.
Commissioner Emmerich?
I just had one question. The officers coming out will be absorbed into the department, and it will not cost or affect anybody with their livelihoods or jobs?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the areas I want to beef up is our community policing unit, which will help target the youth in our community and provide additional programs. So that's the direction I want to go, because those programs are going to be here. Next year, you're buying a year if we stay in a school. The following year, it's going to be over to them. So I'd rather get those programs and personnel in place and start helping our community here.
Absolutely.
And
Would
and
agree.
I commend that.
Yeah.
That's what I would be looking
Thank
for.
you. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I think that is imperative.
Absolutely.
That question,
Yep.
Commissioner Emmers, thank you for asking.
So can I get a
that.
consensus to do as the chief is requesting, go ahead and pull out for the upcoming year?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Gosh, and yes,
You have
wow.
all the way across?
I didn't even get to say you got it, Mom. Yes.
All right. Okay, there's your, you have a.
Thank you very much, yes.
Unanimous consensus.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Anything else, Mr. Lear?
No, sir.
Before I move on, just so I don't forget, because we were talking about teen court, and you did mention Sean, I had reached out to Ms. Heather Todd, about a week ago or so, to see about doing a recognition for him before he leaves, and I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know when he was leaving, but you said it's this week.
Yeah, I think it's
And
this
she
week.
got busy and had a hard time getting back to me, so I reached out to her again today. So I was hoping that I could get the commission to ram through a certificate of recognition on the 7th, just to kind of make him lose a little more hair.
Absolutely.
He ain't got much left.
It wouldn't be him anyways, it would
No,
be the
that's
court
right.
clerk's office.
She has plenty of hair to lose.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if, for the 7th, we can maybe have a recognition, we can put it on the 4 o'clock time certain, so that way.
It'd be with the other
everyone-
proclamations that we
Yes.
have going on,
Yeah,
absolutely.
at the time certain.
Absolutely.
That should be done all right, shouldn't it? It's just a proclamation, it's not
Well,
really
well,
changing
well, it's just a
the agenda.
recognition. It's a certificate of recognition, so it's not even a full.
Well, I mean, we can do a proclamation too,
Yeah.
without, I would rather see the proclamation. I mean, he is the first
Yeah, well, that is true.
manager to bring teen court to the city of Northport.
And
that-
blow us up so
Yeah.
good that we're
I
having to
mean,
talk about
You gotta remember, the citizens have worked on getting teen court here for years. I mean, it's not a very small feat that occurred, so.
Well, a proclamation usually makes a declaration, and I apologize. The certificate recognizes
The
that
individual.
gentleman's. Exactly, so there's a difference
Yeah,
in.
you would do the proclamation for teen court itself.
Exactly,
and then the
where a certificate,
Okay.
but it would still go
Yeah.
at the same
was
time.
leaving, it would be a recognition
No,
of
you're
the
right.
work that he's done during the time that he was
Right.
here.
Yep, you're right. Do the
Commissioner
certificate.
Vice Mayor McDowell.
City Attorney, is there enough time to amend the agenda for notice requirements to do it on Thursday?
For a
Do we
recognition, a
need- I
certificate
don't
of
even know if we
recognition, 4 o'clock
need-
time certain.
Yeah, I think the clerk could probably inform you better as to how much time she needs to get it posted.
It's a recognition. Yeah, well, it is
don't know
4
what the-
o'clock, so we're over 48 hours,
Exactly,
right?
we're over it.
So as long as we do the time certain, we're over the 48 hours.
Okay,
So
I
can
just
go ahead
wanted
and
to
get a
make sure,
consensus?
I don't know what the procedures are. I know it's a recognition.
So we'll have to do that before 4 o'clock today, at least advertise it, right? So do we
Yes.
have a consensus? Okay,
Yes.
that is unanimous. Okay, I'm going to move on. City Attorney?
Oh, no, I did not have any communication.
All right, she's back with us. Assistant City Clerk? Huh? Okay. Well, meeting adjourned.
Oh, that was the best.
Welcome back to reality.
Quality, darling.
With us, appreciate it.